Let's see. I think we're all on with the exception of Mr. Bolton. Dr. White, is there Spanish translation? Yeah, I see the interpretation.
Yes, there is.
Okay. All right. Buenas tardes. Si desean escuchar esta reunión en español, favor de presionar el enlace en la parte de abajo de la pantalla que dice interpretation o interpretación. Gracias. And with that, we'll call this meeting to order. Dr. Joyner, would you lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance?
Yes, I will.
Thank you.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. And Madam Chair, can I make a special request before the board meeting start?
Sure.
We don't talk about Bruno. We need a little laughter.
Okay, I was like, wait, what? But then that would make it that we talk about it, right? So you can explain after.
Yeah, we would have to have a special executive session to talk about Bruno.
Oh, God. Okay. Thank you. Before we start with public participation, I just want us to take a moment in silence to honor the Hill House Jr. who was tragically killed last week. Thank you. Our thoughts and prayers are with the family.
And Madam Chair, one of the captains of the Hill House track team, young adult, a daughter of two Hill House graduates, a Hill House graduate herself, was tragically killed in Meriden recently. Dominique Curtis, great family, great parents, grandparents, and what have you. And she was a really shining star for Hill House during the time she was there, graduate of Delaware State University. I'd like to send our prayers and concerns out to Herbert and Diane Curtis, her parents, who were former students of mine and very dear to me.
Thank you, Dr. Joyner. Thank you, Dr. Joyner. Our thoughts are with the family as well. Thank you. All right, we'll move on to public participation. It's hard to do the move on after mentioning something like that.
Yes.
We'll move on to public participation. Dr. Joyner and Dr. White.
You have 3
Ms.
minutes.
Hannons is going to assist today.
Right. You have 3 minutes to speak. When time expires, please complete your sentence. Thank you.
Dr. Joyner, are you ready?
Yes.
Okay. Our first guest should be coming in at this time, Sarah Levine.
Hello, my name is Sarah Levine, and I'm a TESOL certified reading specialist at Barnard School. At the last meeting, I spoke about the reading crisis in New Haven schools. Specifically, we learned at a recent Board of Ed meeting that only about 30% of our students in grades K through 5 are reading on grade level. We need to do something about this immediately. 2 important things need to happen. First, we need to train our teachers, administrators, and central office staff on the current brain science showing how people learn to read. Second, we need to purchase a high-quality curriculum that aligns with this research, and for our beginning readers, replace the current leveled reading books with high-quality texts that are controlled for previously taught phonics skills. While phonics is only one piece of the reading puzzle, it is a crucial piece, especially in the younger grades. New Haven uses a phonics program called Foundations in grades K through 3. Foundations teaches phonics in a direct, systematic, and explicit manner. This is in accordance with the brain science of learning to read. However, New Haven also uses a reading workshop approach for a portion of the curriculum because students reading what are called leveled texts. I'd like to explain why leveled texts are problematic in the younger grades. At the beginning of first grade and foundation, students will be learning to read words like cat, bugs, rash, and tall. They will be instructed to look at all the letters and sound out the words. They will then practice reading and writing this type of word. This follows brain science, which shows that readers need to look at all of the letters of a word in order to read it accurately and ultimately orthographically map the word, which is the process that all successful readers use to become fluent readers. Foundations is taught for about half an hour. Then students move to reading workshop, which is usually 30 to 45 minutes, where they are given leveled text to read. A leveled text meant for early readers might follow a pattern and say something like, I like to eat cake, I like to eat cookies, and so on, along with a picture of the food item. At this point, students have not been taught how to read most of these words, so they are forced to use pictures to guess the words. This goes against the brain science, and in fact is a strategy that poor readers use to figure out words. We are teaching our students to guess at words because we are giving them books that require guessing. As a reading specialist, it is so hard to break students of the habit of guessing words, but I spend a lot of time doing just that. It doesn't have to be this way. Using a structured literacy approach in the younger grades, students use decodable texts until they are able to read enough words to move into reading books of their choice. In structured literacy, students are also being read aloud a variety of books that are interesting and grade appropriate. They may also be given some time to look through books that they enjoy. But during reading instructions, students should be practicing by reading books where they can decode most of the words. New Haven needs to follow the brain science and stop using leveled texts in the early grades, which teaches students poor reading habits and directly impacts our phonics program, Foundations, in a negative manner. Thank you.
Our next speaker is listed as Tony. May you please give your first and last name?
Yes, hello, I'm sorry about that. Tony Criscolo.
Thank you. You may begin.
Thank you and good evening, everybody. I almost had to suppress a chuckle while the reading specialist was talking about phonics because as I recall, New Haven had phonics. And then when the great bright idea came along to get rid of it, it was tossed out. And generations of kids that were subjects of those experimental programs are now paying the consequences of it. We all have in school, we've all been victims of the latest fad. And I hope that they do go back to phonics, but mostly I hope that students are encouraged to have a love of reading, because that can overcome a lot of things when you love to read and you enjoy to read. I did want to bring to attention a concern that I had with regard to anything that we're doing in the public schools. We can't do anything. I am a high school teacher. We cannot do anything if we do not have control of our buildings. If the children have come back to school in August, very, very differently than what they were before. It's like they have never been to school before. They are acting in ways that are dangerous to themselves and to staff members, and at the least extremely disrespectful to everyone. If we do not get a handle on that, I don't think anything else is going to fall into place. And I would encourage, I do believe we had this program in the past, a program that you bring in people to talk to us all about civility and how to act in public and how to act towards people so that no matter where you go, you are the right person doing the right thing. And a lot of times when I want to get down on the students and blame them, all you have to do is look at the Academy Awards. If that's the example that actors and role models are giving to our children, we are in a lot of trouble. So I would ask that this board maybe consider, if there's ever any money, a little manners program, a little civility program, a little kindness program. I think the children have, not that they have forgotten, I just think that they're subject to so many bad examples out there, and maybe we're all guilty of it. But I think we need to start with them And I think we could also use to improve some of our own manners too. So we could certainly work on that. But I hope that you will consider it and find some money somewhere. And thank you to the board member and to the mayor and to Dr. Tracy for attending the citywide student council. I'm the student council advisor for my high school, and it was a pleasure to see you there. And we invite any board members, come to our school anytime and visit. I think that you'll learn a lot. Thank you, everyone.
Next, we have Ms. Hopes McFadden.
Good afternoon, everyone. I just want to say, I didn't know if anybody else was going to announce this, that there's a march on Wednesday, a march for our schools. So that, in order to try to get more funding to fund our schools. I mean, we're in a very different time now. People are saying, we're going to compare ourselves to like Bridgeport and Hartford as far as salaries are concerned. Negotiations are coming up. People aren't leaving New Haven for Bridgeport and Hartford. They're leaving for the suburbs and they're getting paid $10,000, $20,000 more. This is a new time. This is not like, people needed to stay in this job forever and not have other options. So I just want people to come out on March on Wednesday and also, let us know that, if you want good teachers, you're gonna have to pay for them because there are other people that want them. You don't have to stay in a place where you don't want to be, that people don't appreciate you with money. And I would like to concur with my coworker, Tony Criscola. Times are different. I mean, I really have a good relationship with my students. My students are fine. We joke, I have a great rapport with them, but, a lot of them are just so much social media out there and so many poor examples out there. I didn't even watch the Academy Awards. And my son came to me last night and showed me that foolishness that happened. I'm like, since when are words worth going up on a stage and slapping somebody? We can't have that as an example. And no, I don't care about what he's going through. That's nonsense. My mother told me a long time ago, words don't hurt you. And she told me, you better not get into a fight because somebody says something about me. So that's foolishness. It's coming from the very top. And our students are looking at this. They're looking at this and they're thinking it's okay. And it's not okay. It is not okay. That, he had I don't care. There's no rough moment that gives you the right to smack somebody else. Because everybody can have a rough moment. He can have a rough moment. The person he's smacking can have a rough moment. All can have a rough moment. And that's why kids are fighting in school, because everybody's having a rough moment and everybody's smacking each other. We have to get to the point where we understand each other, and we have some civility and we have some appreciation of each other, and we know to keep our hands to ourselves. And the last thing I like to talk about is the cell phone policy. I wish we would really come up with a cell phone policy other than me saying 5,000 times a day to put your phone away, and they don't put their phone away. I don't know what it is. I don't know what we can do about that, but there's so much that is taken away from education. These students are spending so much time on their cell phones in class. And I mean, I know our superintendent said, don't get into a fight with students about their cell phones. And I'm not planning on getting into a fight, but I'll finish my sentence, but we really need to do that because it's impeding their education. Thank you.
Thank you. We do have one more person who just raised their hand. Miss Leslie Blateau.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you, Ms. Red-Hannons. My name is Leslie Blateau. I'm a social studies teacher at Metropolitan, president of the New Haven Federation of Teachers, a New Haven resident and parent of a first grader at Hill Central. First of all, I'd like to thank the Board of Education, district leaders, event organizers, and all of the members of our school communities for their work in bringing the NHPS Day of Hope and Healing to life. There were outdoor adventures, karaoke competitions, panel discussions, art, music, yoga, and more. The events and the beauty of the day can serve as a guide for us moving forward as we work toward an important shared goal, making our schools more human-centered places. Given the very real stress, loss, and disruptions that so many of us have experienced and continue to experience, the acknowledgement and the decision to give people the time and space to reconnect and heal is necessary. On that day, we recognize the needs of the human beings in our schools and work to meet those needs. The research tells us the extent to which stress and cortisol impede learning. So the educators of NHPS designed and used interventions and supports to intentionally lower stress and cortisol. We can continue to do this important work whether or not it's an official day of hope and healing. In fact, intentionally lowering stress and cortisol is one of the best ways we can ensure engagement and deep learning in our classrooms. Our schools are mirroring the larger human experience right now. People feel a full range of emotions, feelings that sometimes appear to contradict each other. Our collective commitment to students can also be accompanied by doubt in the capacity of the system to meet our students' needs. The love of teaching and learning can also be accompanied by intense stress and frustration from the cultural irrelevance of high-stakes testing and tracking in our schools. And our own self-confidence and belief in our ability to do our jobs is countered by the current challenges that few would have ever predicted. Our school communities need to know that staffing, stability, and safety are our priorities right now. As we lose teaching staff, as members of our school communities, like security guards, are transferred without reassurances about why, we have reason for concern. And I invite the board to focus on these three areas of staffing, stability, and safety in our schools. With these goals in mind, members of the New Haven community will march from central office to City Hall to support our classrooms on Wednesday, March 30th at 4 o'clock. New Haven students and families deserve fully funded schools, and it is our collective responsibility to call on state and local leaders to ensure that we make this happen. And I'll add, we will march to City Hall on Wednesday afternoon, and then I invite people to get in their cars or take a city bus to go from City Hall to Career at 6 o'clock, where we speak to the alders about ensuring that New Haven gets fully funded in the city budget. Thank you for your time.
Madam President, we do not have any other attendees with their hands raised.
Thank you, Ms. Hannans. And so with that, we'll move on to the action items. The first being the approval of the board meeting minutes of March 14th.
Madam Chair, I move to approve the board meetings of March 20.
Thank you, Dr.
Thank you, 17th.
Thank you, Dr. Joyner. Is there a second, Mr. Wilcox?
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Wilcox. Any discussion? Okay, seeing none, we'll go to approve the March 14th meeting minutes. Mr. Wilcox,
Yes.
Dr. Joyner,
Yes.
Mr. Goldson,
Yes.
Dr. Yarborough,
Yes.
Dr. Benitez.
Yes.
Are the students on, Mr. Fiore?
Yes.
And I don't see Ms. Roman. Mayor Elicker,
Yes.
and I am a yes as well, and so the minutes pass. Next item, personnel report, Dr. Tracy.
Thank you so much, Madam President. And good afternoon, board and members of the community who may be watching at this time. I'd ask that we approve the personnel report, the action items, and I also, before you approve that, I want to just highlight there are 4 teachers who've served New Haven very well and are retiring. We wish them well in their retirement. For the action item, I ask that we accept the personnel report.
There a motion, Mr. Wilcox?
I move we approve the action items of the personnel report.
There a second?
Second.
Thank you, Dr. Joyner and Mr. Wilcox. Any discussion? Dr. Benitez?
Yes, I just wanted to congratulate Robert Cousin for his career in New Haven. I know many people don't really know Bob, but if you were ever in a school with a computer or a program that you didn't understand, you wanted Bob Cousin to be the one who came to your rescue. So just wanted to share that.
Thank you, Dr. Benitez. I just have a question, Dr. Tracy. In the appointments on the first page at the bottom, the psychologists, there's no school assignment, and even for some of the paraprofessionals. Is that because it hasn't been determined yet, or are they floaters?
The floater, these are facilities people.
Okay. No, the school psychologists?
School psychologist, which page are you on?
The first page on the bottom, there's two, Courtney Barrera and Arlene Alva.
Yes, the Western Connecticut State University and College of St. Rose.
No,
Yes.
she means school person.
What school they're sent to? Oh, they're itinerant, so they don't have any particular school. They're sent from school to school, depending.
Okay. Okay, that's what I thought, but I wasn't sure. I
Okay.
just
All right.
wanted the clarification. Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Ms. Mack, did you have your hand up because you were gonna respond?
Yes, good evening. I just wanted to also add that there for the next upcoming school year, the 22-23 school year. So because we don't have our calendar set for the next school year, that is why we have the date as TBD.
Got it. Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Yeah, I wasn't sure if like each of the schools had a psychologist or they were shared or, so that was my only question. Any other discussion? Okay, seeing none, we'll go to approve the personnel report as presented by Dr. Tracy. Dr. Joyner?
Yes, do you have a question? Or are you talking about the action item?
Approving, yes, approving the personnel
Oh, yes.
report.
Madam Chair, I motion to approve the DECA field trip to Atlanta, Georgia.
Wait, hold on, we have to vote on the personnel report.
Sorry, I'm a little out of it. I sent you guys a note. I got a bit of a tip.
You're probably out of it because I never ask any questions and today I did.
Okay, yes.
Good. Okay, thank you. Dr. Benitez,
Yes.
Mr. Wilcox,
Yes.
Mr. Goldson,
Yes.
Mr. Fiore,
Yes.
and Dr. Yarborough,
Yes.
Mayor Elicker,
Yes.
okay, and the personnel reports passes. Now you're on, Dr. Joyner.
Yes, Madam Chair, I move to approve a field trip of students from, Career High School to Atlanta, Georgia, to attend a conference on distributive education, International Conference on Distributive Education. They have already distinguished themselves as participants in the stock market game and other things, and this will actually enhance their abilities.
Thank you, Dr. Joyner. Is there a second? Dr. Benitez? Dr. Benitez? We can hear you.
Second.
Okay, thank you. Any discussion? Mayor Elicker?
We haven't gone through these for 2 years, I think, because we haven't had a request for field trip, but it always seems ridiculous to me that the Board of Education has to approve these things. Just wanted to note that for the record. I don't know if at some point we might explore delegating that authority to someone else.
I agree.
Thank you, Mayor Elicker. Dr. Yarborough? And then Mr. Goldson?
Yes, just want to congratulate the students and the staff, faculty who work with the students for this. I saw their, ranking out of the national group and even the Connecticut group. So it's a lot to be proud of.
Absolutely. Thank you, Dr. Yarborough. Mr. Goldson?
Thank you, Madam President. I understand Mayor Ellicker's issue and concerns. This is a written policy that was hashed out several years ago. It's been in place for a while. It was reviewed and changed maybe 4 years ago, like 3-4 years ago. It would have to go through governance committee if there was if folks were interested in trying to revise it. We did it it was done for an important reason. I just can't remember off the top of my head what it was for at this point. But I think there was some concerns about liability and some other stuff. So yeah, just wanted to put that.
That was the reason, Mr. Golson. It was about liability.
Yeah.
Because you and I were very active in that part.
Right.
I think we can fix it so that it doesn't have to be as laborious as it currently is.
Thank you, Mr. Bolton. I saw another hand up, but I don't see it anymore. Any further discussion? Okay, seeing none, we'll vote to approve the DECA overnight field trip. Dr. Benitez,
Yes.
Ms. Roman,
Yes.
Mr. Fiore. Did you guys switch places? You left now? Mr. Fiore, are you still on? No.
He's connecting his microphone. I think it's connected now.
Okay. Dr. Yarborough, I'll come back to Mr. Fiore.
Yes.
Dr. Joyner,
Yes.
Mr. Wilcox,
Yes.
Mr. Fiore,
Yes.
thank you. Mayor Elicker, Mayor Elicker,
Sorry, I thought I said yes. Yes.
Mr. Goldson,
Yes.
and I am a yes as well. And so that motion passes. Congratulations to the student and the staff. Finance and Operations Committee, Mr. Wilcox.
Yes, thank you. And as is typical, if anybody would like anything moved separately, please let me know either ahead of time or now. And we do have, I asked President Rivera to move one item, which is agreement number 4. As everyone knows, I recuse myself on anything related to Clifford Beers due to my spouse's work there on a federally funded grant project.
Great, thank you. I move to approve agreement number 4, which is amendment 1 to agreement 963-63254 with Clifford Beer Guidance Clinic to expand the scope of services to Roberto Clemente and Obama schools.
I second that.
Thank you, Dr. Yarborough. Any discussion? Okay, seeing none, we'll go to approve agreement number 4. Dr. Joyner,
Yes.
Mr. Wilcox,
Accused.
Dr. Yarborough,
Yes.
Dr. Benitez,
Yes.
Ms. Roman,
Yes.
Mr. Goldson,
Yes.
Mr. Fiore. Mr. Fiore? No. No. Can you hear me, Mr. Fiore?
Yes.
Yes. Okay.
I'm sorry, my Wi-Fi is very bad. It's cutting in and out for me. Everything's getting very delayed. So if I don't respond, that's why.
That's all right. Thank you. Mayor Elicker?
Yes.
And I am a yes as well. Please continue, Mr. Wilcox.
All right, thank you. I'm going to make a motion here, and that is I move that we approve the 3 abstracts, the remaining 4 agreements, and the 1 purchase order as listed on our agenda and as recommended by the Finance and Operations Committee for approval.
Matt, I want to recuse myself from one item.
Oh, I'm sorry. Which item would that be?
Under agreements number 3, the child daycare contract from the Office of Early Childhood, just those adjustments.
Okay. Madam President, I'd like to withdraw my motion and make a new motion. And that is that we approve I move that we approve agreement number 3, the no-cost amendment to the child daycare contract.
For a second.
Second.
Thank you, Dr. Joyner. Any discussion? Okay, seeing none, we'll go to approve agreement number 3. Dr. Joyner,
Yes.
Mr. Wilcox,
Yes.
Dr. Yarborough,
Recuse.
Dr. Benitez,
Yes.
Mr. Fiore,
Yes.
Ms. Roman,
Yes.
Mr. Bolton,
Yes.
Mayor Elicker,
Yes.
and I am a yes as well. So agreement number 3 passes.
And then I'd like to make another motion, and that is I move that we approve the 3 abstracts, the remaining 3 agreements, and the 1 purchase order as listed on our agenda.
Second.
Thank you, Dr. Joyner. Any discussion? Okay, seeing none, we'll vote on the remaining F&O items. Dr. Joyner,
Yes.
Dr. Benitez,
Yes.
Mr. Bolton,
Yes.
Ms. Roman,
Yes.
Mr. Fiore,
Yes.
Mr. Wilcox,
Yes.
Dr. Yarborough,
Yes.
and Mayor Elicker.
Yes.
Okay. And so the remaining F&O items pass. Student reports is next.
Michelle, would you like to go first?
Hi, everyone. Hope you're all doing well. What I wanted to talk about in my student report is something that recently went on in Hill House. I know that a student recently passed away that attended Hill House High School, and I feel like Hill House really addressed the situation really well. All the juniors, because the student that did pass away was a junior. We after we took our SATs Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, we had circles where we had people come and speak to us about being a community and the different issues that are going on in our schools, and basically just someone near to like just talk to us about everything and make us feel like we have someone there for us. And I feel like that really went well because a lot of students are grieving, and I feel like that's something that should be implemented in all high schools. Having someone there to be able to talk to. So for us to all express our concerns and then to have an adult from the school in the meeting, it made us feel like we were really being listened to. And I feel like that's a big step to like improving our mental health problems in the New Haven public high schools.
Thank you, Ms. Roman. Any discussion or questions from Ms. Roman, Dr. Joyner?
First of all, I talked to
Wait, one more
Michelle.
thing. One more thing, sorry. The person who like organized everything for us was Daryl, and I feel like he did a really great job with that because he does a really good job with listening to all of the students.
Thank you, Ms. Roman. Go ahead, Dr. Joyner.
Madam Chair, I speak to Anthony and Michelle a lot, and I am so impressed with their ability to identify and try to solve problems at the problem source. And I think what Michelle has done, what Anthony has done, some of you may not know, but Anthony is active in other schools too as a board member to try to help students understand their role in solving problems. And quite frankly, each problem that's brought to the board is something that can only be solved by the people back in the buildings. The board can provide support. The superintendent can provide support and as many resources as we can handle. But it really is up to the job of the principal and the teachers and the students in the school. When Mr. Golson was president of the student body at Hill House, we had issues in terms of conflicts between groups and what have you. But I can see it right now. He and Tracina Gray and Burl Bailey and other students, they got together and they discussed these issues. They had phenomenal administrators, Mr. Vitale, Mr. Verderam, Mr. Burnett, yours truly. And they were able to sit down and identify the problems and solve them. And they also helped each other out with schoolwork. With when somebody got sick, they raised money. Mr. Golson led a turkey drive every Thanksgiving when he was president of the student body. I helped them deliver turkeys. Problems really have to be identified and solved at their source. I mean, I certainly appreciate the fact that people come in and make comments, but it's really important for you to deal with the resources you have right there. The other thing is that I don't respond to public comment, but I have been saying all along that the driver of behavior in schools is really the conduct of the people in those schools. And there's an African proverb that says that the ruin of a nation begins in the homes of its people. And I would say that the salvation of a nation begins in the homes of its people as well. And those students that we have that are respectful and work hard and attend school and what have you, they're getting a great benefit from the school district. In fact, 2 of them are going to Georgia in April because of their work in DECA. And Anthony and Mashai are examples of students also who put a lot of time in. Mashai's gone through a lot. You just don't know. But she's kept it real. She's kept it 100. And she has kept her eye on the prize. So that's a lesson for all of us. And by the way, the violence at the Academy Award pales in comparison to the violence that's taking place in Europe right now. So let's get it straight. You know, I mean, that wasn't a good example. But all you have to do is watch CNN and any other reputable news source, and you'll see that that's a real problem. And this world context and this national context and this state context is affecting everybody. And the only choice we have is to gird our loins and to move forward and to lead with kindness and respect. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Joyner. Any other questions or comments?
I would like to now give my report.
First, Mr. Fiore.
First, I just want to say thank you to everyone who was able to come to the citywide meeting. It was a pleasure and an honor to be able to host the meeting with 50 student leaders and also a room of government leaders. I feel like for students, it's really special to be able to be heard directly. And it was just a great place to be able to be heard and ask questions and learn new information directly from authorities. So I just want to say thank you again for participating in that meeting and extending the invitation to anyone who would like to come and listen, speak, anything along those lines. And I think students would really appreciate that. Moving on, in touch of the cell phone plan that was mentioned earlier by, I think, a teacher, I am curious to ask, is there any cell phone plan instated already in the New Haven schools besides don't have it out? Because I would be curious in a program that would let students have their phone taken away or just for the school day. I don't think a lot of students would like that plan, but I feel like for the people that recognize that phones are a big distraction in school, I feel like that would be a good opportunity for them to be able to be isolated from that and be able to focus in this schools. And I feel like it's a worthwhile adventure to, or not adventure, a journey to figure out if taking away cell phones voluntarily would able to, one, increase focus and attention in schools, but also increase accountability on the students themselves. I feel like if we're able to give students a chance to recognize that phones are distracting them in schools, that would help them be more accountable just as a person, which we talked about improving their social and inner dynamic. And then after that, I did want to touch further upon something that was mentioned in the last meeting about the policy and when or shouldn't the use of the N-word is in the classrooms. And we actually, excuse me, we actually talked about that in the citywide meeting, and I think that was very riveting. And I was thinking this, and another student brought it up during the meeting. No matter what the policy is, it should be like very well broadcasted to all students so that if and when a student feels uncomfortable about the use of the N-word in the classroom, we know what the policies are and how to act on them. And I feel like there's a lot of confusion about that going in the schools right now, in terms of a student doesn't know if what a teacher did was appropriate or not. And I feel like we could do better as a Board of Ed broadcasting when is it, or if it is okay using the N-word in a class. And that concludes my report.
Thank you, Mr. Fiore. Any questions or comments for Mr. Fiore? Dr. Jordan?
I guess the old guy has to say something. Anthony, I don't know if you and I have had this discussion, but the issue of the N-word is an issue of anti-locution. And of course, that is the most provocative word as far as I'm concerned. And there have been two great books written about it. One is by Randall Robinson. And I actually have an extra copy if you're interested. But it also, there's a third book called The Nature of Prejudice that actually labels it as such, and it covers all words that are used to harm people. And the term is anti-locution, speech against hate speech. And that's an example of hate speech. It might be good if we looked at a policy on prejudice broadly and also have something for that. The other thing is that there's a time to use it appropriately when it's referred to historically, but I wouldn't use it, just like I wouldn't use the word that's used to demean Italians or Jews, anybody else. I always say the word that rhymes with this or that because I find the N-word despicable. But the hypocrisy of it all is that rappers have made millions off of using the word. And it's certainly used in art in a way that I find despicable, but it's controversial. So I think if we had a policy around anti-locution, period, it might help. And it's something that I've been raising with the board recently, and hopefully we can get on it and be at the forefront of trying to help people understand this, how and why words like that are problematic.
Thank you, Dr. Joyner. Mr. Goldson?
Thank you, Madam President. Thank you, Mr. Fiore, for bringing that issue up. It's an important issue that we never really adequately addressed. We had an administrator about a year and a half ago who used the word and literally got a promotion. So I think we should really have an honest discussion about and enforce the rules with everyone, not just with individuals who don't have power, but with those who do too. And I would love to be a part of that discussion. Thank you, Madam President.
Thank you, Mr. Goldson. Dr. Benitez?
I agree with what's being said. I wanted to address a little bit of what this Mr. Fiore mentioned in terms of students not being sure what's appropriate, what's not appropriate. Well, we do have a policy in terms of people feeling harassed or bullied. And of course, many people don't think of hate language as such, but it is indeed a way of harassing an individual and making that person feel little. So I agree that we may want to do something a little bit more, but right now what we need to ensure with students is that if something feels inappropriate, it is inappropriate for you, and you want to address it with an adult who has the power to help the student feel comfortable in an environment where they are supposed to be learning, not feeling threatened by words or actions.
Thank you, Dr. Benitez. Mr. Wilcox, can you hear me?
I can hear you.
I just got a message on my computer that my internet is unstable. So if for some reason something happens, please take over.
Yes.
Thank you. Mr. Fiore and then Ms. Roman.
I will. I definitely agree with everyone that reviewing the policy and also reviewing the policy with students is very important. What I want to highlight, though, is the clarity for students themselves to know the policy and how to act if the policy is broken. We ask ourselves, why are there protests in the schools? And I think it's because they don't know how else to act, how else to make change. When students feel unheard, and especially because they don't know how to be heard in instances like this, I think it's especially important to highlight how they can kind of approach us and approach other administration in terms of how to act. And I don't know exactly what that can look like. I don't know if that's making posters and hanging them up in every school on what the policy is and how to act, or making a video to share or something along those lines. But I feel like it's definitely doable in terms of getting the word out there and how to act and when to act in these school settings. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Fiore. Ms. Roman?
It bothers me that we're even having this conversation because I feel like all of us we're at a time in a day and age where everyone should know that you shouldn't use the word or try to, not use the word at all. What bothers me is what Mr. Golson said, that previously in the past that someone used the word and then they got a promotion. How do you think that makes students feel? That someone can come out their mouth and say a word like that and then to receive a promotion? And I feel like everyone that uses the word should be held accountable. And I feel like this is something that should have been addressed in the past, which I'm also glad that we're addressing now. But what does that say to the students that you gave someone a promotion and they used a word like that? So now when a student uses the word, they probably think like, oh, it's not a big deal because someone, got something good out of doing it. So I feel like this is an issue that we definitely should address as soon as possible.
Thank you, Ms. Roman. Any other discussion?
My hand up.
Oh, Dr. Tracy.
So I just want to clear up a misconception that was stated. No one was promoted. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Tracy. Mr. Bolton.
Madam President, the administrator was in the school as a principal, was moved to central office. Any administrator in this system that has moved from school to a central office considers that a promotion. Plain and simple, you may not call it a promotion, you may not classify it as promotion, but it's a promotion. That is everybody's goal, to get to central office. So yeah, it was a promotion.
Thank you, Mr. Bolton. Dr. Joyner, and then
Madam
Mr.
Chair,
Fiore.
I think that it doesn't do us any good to rehash this. There are facts out there about what happened, and to go further would demean the meeting, in my opinion. And I hope that we can move on. I've ordered 2 books for Mashai and for Anthony, gifted by Dr. Edward Joyner, Madam Chair, so that they can read for themselves and understand how context influences whether or not, to the degree something is egregious. And there are some legal issues that have to be addressed when dealing with issues like this. And I think it's really good for students to figure this out for themselves. So I'm going to I've ordered the books. As soon as I get them, I'll send them to them, and they can read for themselves and understand this for themselves. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Joyner. Mr. Fiore, could you? Yep, go ahead.
Thank you, Dr. Joyner. I really appreciate that. I feel like knowledge is always important to gain, especially from books and everything. I don't want to change the subject because I feel like what we're having is a very important discussion. However, I do have one final thing to report on. As the student elections come up, I have a lot of students who are interested in the role ask me one question: why can't New Haven students vote on a New Haven Board of Education properly? Me and Mashai do have a vote, but it is not counted in the formal tally. Me personally, I always was okay with it because I realized that my voice was given power and that I could justify that. But I do struggle with myself giving them an answer, and I was wondering if that could be answered here tonight. Anyone?
Charter issue.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, could you say that? I didn't hear you.
I believe it's an issue with this charter
It is.
as how the board is comprised and who gets to vote.
Anthony.
Could that be, and I realize that this is a question that could probably go on for hours, so maybe this is a discussion we could have later. But can you go into more detail? Because I think a lot of students are maybe discouraged from running for this position once they find out that the vote they do have is not discredited, but just not counted.
Anthony, there's an answer. It's a short and legal answer. And actually, it might be better if our attorney would answer. I know the answer. Darnell knows the answer because we both were on the board when it happened. But it might be better if our attorney answered because he, I want to stay in my lane, but I do know the answer. So, Madam Chair, could we ask Attorney Alexiadis to answer the question?
Yeah, I see him. I'm sorry, I have to switch screens to see everyone. So, Attorney Alexiadis, please.
I'm happy to defer to Dr. Joyner's wisdom and experience, but I think that there is a potential issue with a student who is not 18 and therefore not eligible to vote in a general election, voting on our board. And I think it's also a matter of bylaws and charter, and you would begin with a charter revision, which happens generally every 10 years in the city of New Haven, or perhaps could be proposed in the interim.
Anthony, the real quick and easy answer is this. When it was decided to have students on the board, they were put on the board as non-voting members. And so that's a legal standing. And the board currently consists of 7 board members, 2 elected board members. So people would say, well, why can't we have all elected board members? Because the charter does not allow that. And so if somebody says they want to run for an appointed seat, they couldn't do it because of law. And it's really the way that it's really a rich, small version of how our system of government is organized, with a legislative branch that makes laws, an executive branch that enforces them, and a judicial branch that interprets them. So in this case, the legislation in New Haven, the Board of Alders voted to change the charter to have 2 elected members in 2 districts in the city, 1 and 2, and that's Mr. Golson and me. And then they also voted to have 2 students that would add to the board that would have non-voting status. But since I've been on this board, the board has been very receptive to and has been influenced by student board members. And you and Mashai are examples of that. And then at the very beginning, we had 2 very strong student leaders who influenced the board quite a bit. We also made a mistake in the charter. At one point, we had 8 board members. And we couldn't undo that because they had, whomever developed the laws had made a mistake and didn't get the dates right. But then we were bound by that law. So it's a binding action. And as Attorney Alexiadis said, it can only be changed with a charter revision, but it also can't be something that contradicts existing laws or existing precedents about who can vote and what have you.
Thank you, Dr. Joyner. Mr. Bolton?
I'd just like to make a little amendment to what Dr. Joyner said. Even though the Board of Alders recommended the charter change is actually voted on by the voters, City of New Haven. So it has to be voted on by the voters of the city. To change the charter, you have to have a vote by the electorate of the City of New Haven. And there also may be some state law around this too. So we should do some research on it and figure out, because I wouldn't say give up on it because it's a difficult process. I would say let's put a little bit of energy into researching the issues again, finding out what state laws affect it, Charter revision, I can't remember when it's coming back up again. But start talking to the alderman about charter revision and see where we are. I do agree with Mr. Alexianis. It's probably in terms of the students who are under 18 years old. I think to be a member of the board, you have to be
Rising junior.
No, to be a voting member of the board, I believe you have to be registered to vote.
Right.
That would be one issue that you couldn't get around, no matter what you try to do. So that's state law. But let's look at it. Let's look at it and see what options we have.
Thank
Anthony,
you. I really do appreciate that.
Thank you, Mr. Golson.
Anthony,
I'll
you
relay
should
that
know,
information.
Anthony, you should know that you don't have to be a voter to influence the world. Martin Luther King was not an elected official. Neither was Jaime Escalante. There are a number of people that have influenced the world in a much greater way than some of our politicians like Jeff Hawley and Lindsey Graham and folks like that. So.
Thank you, Dr. Joyner. Mr. Fiore.
That concludes my report. Thank you for for letting me take up so much time. I really do appreciate it.
Good job.
Thank you. Thank you. Teaching and learning, Dr. Joyner.
No report at this time. We had to yield our meeting to the board retreat.
Thank you. Superintendent report, Dr. Tracy. You're muted, Dr. Tracy.
Thank you so much, Madam President. Just very quick updates. We have last week 19 COVID cases, so we're actually seeing a slight uptick. We saw a slight uptick last week and 1 case today. So we're hoping that is being kept low as we move through the rest of the week. A report came out from the State Department recently that talks about some reports of where students are and the impact of the pandemic on student learning, et cetera, et cetera. According to the report, students that learned in-person during 2020-2021 school year lost the least ground academically, while those who learned in a hybrid remote model showed substantially weaker achievement and growth during the pandemic. So why I say this as the background is show that technically or basically the data we presented on math and literacy do reflect that. And I know that others are saying that, but you always have students scoring poorly in New Haven. And yes, that is true. But we're not going to look backward. We're going to go forward with what we have. I know that New Haven Public School students are resilient and they will catch up in time with where they need to be. I know that teachers are working hard, or many teachers are working hard to work with our students. And I'm not going to be one to sit here and blame everything on the pandemic. I'm not going to do that. I know 30 years of teaching at Southern Connecticut State University. A lot of people don't know that, but we have dealt with many students who came in with poor test scores, poor grades. But I may say many of them today are administrators, lawyers, doctors, teachers, nurses, you name it, because you cannot measure students through test scores. Yes, we know we need to have it, but test scores don't measure who a student actually is. That's just a measure, quantitative measure of a little window of time in their lives. And I'm going to be here to say that because we have things attached to test scores. We do follow the State Department in measuring where some students are, and through measurement, we need to know where students are in order to mitigate whatever reading issues that they have. And they're different. I'm a certified reading specialist consultant, reading specialist and consultant. And I know that they're different thinking around reading, around literacy in general, and one size does not fit all. We've all learned that. We learned about the 1960s debate over phonics instruction versus other types of instruction. We use in New Haven a balanced literacy approach. In that approach, all the 5 major components of reading are taken care of. We do the fluency, the comprehension, the vocabulary, the phonics, and the phonemic awareness. Those are 5 major strategies, major components of reading that within a balanced literacy block or balanced literacy approach, these things are taken care of, understanding that not all students learn phonetically. I can give example of my son who don't even go to him initially about any sounds. He learns through a whole word approach and he learned. Another learned through an organic approach and she learned. So different strokes for different kids. We just have to figure out how kids are wired. And many students come to school reading and those parents are not even reading specialists. They come to school already reading because of the level of exposure that they get in their neighborhood, in their community, going on trips, learning about things incidentally. So we know that New Haven Public Schools, we have a long way to go. We know our students, we know that 2 years out, technically, of away from direct explicit instruction have really impacted some kids. We know that lack of structure for a couple of years, students coming in, trying to behave. Many times we have to change. Many times we expect the students to change, but working at Jackie Robinson Middle School for several years, I realized I had to be the one to change and not expecting them to change. And when I changed and realized how I need to work with them, they came along with me. I just want to say that as we go through this section. At this time, I want to call Ms. Gemma Joseph Lumpkin to just speak a bit about what is happening around the Code of Conduct and the integration of restorative practices. Ms. Gemma, where's Ms. Gemma? Gemma?
Yes. I have a few people that I brought along with me. Yes, I see Ms. Paula Munoz Gonzalez and Cameo Thorne. I think Daryl is on as well as Ms. Gagliardi. Good evening, board. I'm going to do a quick conversation about where we are with the Code of Conduct, and then I will allow the practitioners within the schools to talk about what's working for them. As you know, I always start this conversation saying that the Code of Conduct was written to ensure that 80% of the work that we do is preventative. The revised code, which was adopted in February, and I will send updated the copies to our new board members. I just realized that might not have been included in your orientation package, so we'll make sure that you have those. But the revised code is intended to focus on preventing harm by regularly using what we in New Haven call community building circles, narrative classroom agreements, problem solving circles. Specifically, we focus on creating a climate where community building is priority. And I was really pleased to hear Ms. Roman talked about the effect of the circles which were held at Hill House in terms of it having a positive impact on the students. It supported the work of our crisis team as well as the work of the staff over at Hill House. So we ran a series of circles that included the entire junior year, the entire 11th grade of students. So currently we have, we're supporting the Code of Conduct through restorative coaches led by Cameo Thorne, Nakisha Kador, Sergio Rodriguez, and they each have a third of the schools providing professional development. We're modeling circles to the staff. We're modeling how we can observe and offer feedback to school staff regarding collaboration and community building. Our supports to that team include about 22 school-based restorative mentors, and these are staff who are trained part-time and provide additional supports to our teachers in the classroom. And then we also have hired Promise Mentors. These are our students who have graduated from New Haven Public Schools, graduated from college, and have returned to help us facilitate this idea of community building. About 50% of our schools are utilizing circles intensively, engaging in our model of restorative practices. And we have with us 3 of those school-based members. I'll start with Ms. Gonzalez, Ms. Munoz Gonzalez from Martinez, to just give us a quick view of how this is working for your students and for your community.
Thank you so much. Hi. How is everyone doing? My name is Paula. I am a kindergarten and first grade bilingual teacher at John Martinez. I am also happy to be working with Cameo Thorne and Sergio with restorative practices. I have to say that Martinez has been working around this for quite some time, but because of the pandemic, unfortunately, we did have to put a hold on it, but we are back and I feel like we are better than before. Just because we understand the importance of it, especially in times like this. So I am very thankful to my principal, Mr. Menacho, who gave me the opportunity to run some PD. So I actually did some PD at a staff meeting. I came up with a presentation. We actually were all in a circle during the presentation, and then we did a quick example of what a community building circle looks like. Moving forward, like a week or so after that, we actually conducted a circle with 7th graders. It was very basic, just community building. And then moving forward in the next 4 weeks or so, we are planning to come up with something called agreements. We also want to help teachers so they can facilitate circles on their own. I've been thinking about this for some time now. It's very important for students to have their go-to people. Who do they go to when they need help? But I think as a community, we have to work together so these students can go to not just one person, but feel that they can go to anyone at any given moment. And I think that will really prepare them for the real world as well. You know, we want to have good relationships with everyone, not just one single person. Thank you, Cameo. And thank you for giving me the opportunity to just talk a little bit about what's going on at Martinez, and anything that you need, let me know.
Thank you, Paula. Yeah, I'm going to move to Patricia Gagliardi, who is supporting students at Brennan.
Hi, good evening, everyone. So yeah, we've been doing this work at Brennan also. This year, we really have a laser focus on restorative practices. So we identified 2 grades, 5th grade and 7th grade, as being the grades that we find there's the most barriers to learning and to some of the, social engagements we'd like to see. So we have met with every single 7th grader and every single 5th grader in circles that were about 10 students each to do community building. From the community building circles, we heard from those students what they wanted the climate and culture to look like in the whole school, and then in particular within their 7th grade classrooms or 5th grade classrooms. And from there, we've come up with topics to hone in on. One being race. 7th grade is really struggling with how they are bullying one another around racial issues. So that's been the topic of our 5th grade, of our 7th grade. And our 5th grade has really had a lot of body shaming bullying. So they are focused on those types of circles. So we have days that are dedicated to each grade. So Tuesdays we hone in on the 5th grade, and Thursdays are our 7th grade. And in between, we're doing a lot of circles to repair harm. But those circles, 5th grade and 7th grade, are really to build the climate and culture up, and they give us the topics. So that's how we've been proceeding this year. And I'm really grateful to Cameo for this, and grateful to Nikisha, who works with our school really well. So thank you for this opportunity for the students.
Thank you, Patricia. And I don't see Daryl Brown. I'm not sure if he's
here.
on. Okay. Go ahead, Daryl.
Hi, my name is Daryl Brown, and I am one of the new school community care coordinators in one of my schools that I'm stationed at is James Hills High School. As you all are well aware, we have experienced a great amount of trauma in the last week or 2 at Hill House High School. And I thought that our students needed to be able to support each other, as well as us supporting each other. And with the amazing support from Ms. Gemma and Cameo and the restorative practice coaches, Sergio and Nikisha, we divided the entire junior class up, over 222 students up, across 3 days after SATs, and had workshops, whereas we addressed grief, how to deal with grief, coping mechanisms, communication, and building community around these circles. Some people think that these ideals or these circles are kind of something of just philosophy. But with these groups that we ran last Thursday, we got to actually show the practice behind them. The students felt like they were heard. The students felt like they were part of the solution. And the students actually felt like this is something that we needed to teach the rest of the student body in order for us to be collectively better, for us to collectively heal, so we can get in front of some of these issues. What we always talk about measurable growth, right? And we always talk about how we can see things and how people have advanced. And the student body has been noticeably calmer because they know the avenues in which they need to communicate, or they would like to communicate or express their emotions and ideas. And through these circles that we had for 3 days, the students were able to explore communication, explore their emotion, and actually feel a part of the solution-making process. So the work that is being done, not only at Hill House, but I know across the district, you can't measure this. You can't measure this because this is going to go far past 4 years of high school. This is going to go far past any type of budget. This is going to be where our community is strengthened by the people who are younger and the people who need this the most. I cannot thank the Board of Education. I cannot thank the restorative practices coaches enough, our administrative staff here at Hill House, and our teaching staff at Hill House, because we felt like a more whole community. We felt like we can support and depend on one another. And that for that, this being my school, a graduate of this school, being a son of New Haven, it was immeasurable. Thank you.
Thank you, Daryl. And I believe Cameo is on. She is our lead on this work. Cameo.
Hello, everyone. Thank you for listening to all of this. Daryl almost made me cry, so now I have to just adjust myself. We do need each other, and I don't think there's any way through where we are. And that means we have to talk to each other. And circles are a fabulous way to do that. If you remember that you're not in a classroom, that you have to tell your stories, they're narrative-based kinds of communications. And that's when I learned to connect with the people I don't understand, because I get to hear. If you ask a question like, share your best time in the classroom, share a time when class was too challenging. You're starting to work at the issues like Ms. Gagliardi was talking about. What are the things the kids that are bringing to the table? But they also hear each other, like what they're struggling with. And that gives me the ability to show up with empathy, because I'm not making you up as I go along. So it is my hope as we go along. There are a lot of kids, and we need a lot of training, and we need a lot of practice, and we need a lot of feedback. It seems simple, and it is simple, but we're not used to it. Actually talking to people in ways that reveal ourselves, right? Like who we really are, that isn't instructional, that isn't about, I often talk about, you say, how are you? And everybody says fine, even though they're getting their leg cut off tomorrow, right? And without those stories, in some measure, we are going to misunderstand one another. And that's what's going on in a lot of the schools right now. They're looking over and they're judging what's going on over here and reacting to it, but they've made that up because they don't know those people over there, even though they go to school with them. And so we got a lot of work to do. I hope this work continues. I believe that we can create real community, and I agree with Daryl, it'll move into the whole community, and these students will leave and they'll strengthen New Haven even more.
Thank you, Cameo. And we're working now on deepening this work. We're going to expand our work to an active model. There's more to come on that. We will launch this over at Clemente in the coming weeks. And so I'll share that a little deeper in greater detail as we roll that project out. So our next steps is to ensure that we get the necessary training to our administrators. The assistant superintendent team has been very generous in working with us on getting the amount of time that we need, and we have said yes, 5 days of training on this work. It incorporates the restorative work, the COMA model, which, as you know, is foundational to what we do in New Haven. Dr. Faye Brown is just on standby with us, along with Cameo and Monica Abbott from our SEL team, to bring this all together for our administrators and particularly our assistant principals. So we look forward to, as I said earlier, deepening and expanding the work in a meaningful way. And we are happy to answer questions for you at this time.
Any questions, Dr. Jordan?
Yeah, I'm timing out myself because I've talked longer than I wanted to tonight because I'm trying to govern, so I set myself for 2 minutes. First of all, this is a perfect example of things that have been done in the past that work well. Teen life conferences, circles, and what have you. But it also has the personnel. Camille Thorne is really worth her weight in gold. Daryl Brown, I hope Daryl doesn't mind me saying this, but Daryl has a lived experience that, you know how kids say, well, I was built for this. Well, he was built for this. Raised by his grandmother, difficult neighborhood, but as Jesse Jackson said, you can be in the ghetto, but the ghetto doesn't have to be in you. He's very spiritual. He's very brave. He's really fearless, and he has a bunch of mentors around him. Gary Moore and his wife, my wife, Mrs. Joyner, played a big role in his life. And of course, Gemma is doing a lot of stuff that people aren't aware of. I hope that she will eventually bring some of this stuff out, and it's a perfect complement to what we're trying to do to educate kids. We cannot educate angry kids. We can't educate kids that don't show up to school. But we can educate kids who want to learn, who are willing to attach themselves to people who can help them. And that's the good point that Ms. Gagliardi made. Every child should have a person that they could go to when they're down and out. And usually if you're a teacher and you stay in this community, you remain that person for that child when that child becomes an adult. I have 60-year-olds that still come to me for advice. And so I think it's critically important that we do create this culture of kindness, that is based on what is best for humanity, and that we take the time to help people understand that until we can get to some of this affective stuff, it's very hard to get to the achievement part that they measure. So my time is up, but I just want to commend all of you, every single one of you, for doing this great work. And that, as it was said in the movement, walk together, children, don't you get weary. I have to leave now because I'm not feeling that well, but thanks so much. And thank you, Madam President, for being such a great leader in these trying times.
Thank you, Dr. Joyner. Feel better. Thank you. Mr. Wilcox?
Thank you very much. Also, thank you for the presentation and for all the people who presented tonight. It's great to hear not only kind of a top level view, but also to hear, the different success stories in various schools. And I did have a couple questions, and that is this, as this relates to, the general code of conduct and the rollout, rolling out anything new like the code of conduct was, which had a lot of major changes over the previous one and the disciplinary policy. And I understand, that the things are going to be a little uneven in the district in terms of how things roll out, and as the schools, start to change their disciplinary policies and things like that. So my question is along the line: are we understanding what Mr. Brown had said, that that you can't measure this? But are we measuring some parts of this that can be measured? Are we starting to see, after a year of this policy being out there, and it's supposed to be fully implemented for this school year, are we seeing any differences in some schools in terms of the disciplinary outcomes? Are we seeing some less suspensions? Are we seeing are we able to equate less expulsions to kids that are receptive or at the schools that are receptive to this process?
Well, I would say that the data around suspensions and expulsions does not necessarily reflect the implementation of the work. I mean, you know, you heard those numbers just the other day reported by Dr. Sherbet. But what we are seeing is more schools are reaching out to us and are themselves engaging in these community building practices. So we believe that we're going through a period now of extreme behaviors that are leading to some of the numbers that we see. But frankly, I think as the pandemic goes, as we get better at implementing these practices, we will then see the numbers that you're talking about. It will take time. I don't have to say that to you, but we are really pleased that more schools are saying, let's do a restorative conference, let's a restorative circle, let's do restorative conferences. Those are our early measures around the number of schools that are involved in this, and it's 50% at this point. We need to get to 75, we need to get to 80, we need to get to 100. But 50% of our schools at this juncture, with the staff that we have and the training that we've been able to do, is a good count for me. We've got to make this shift, that this work is not just about that end, the back end of waiting for the harm to occur. It is mostly about the prevention. So the more we see these practices front-loaded, the more we will see the reduction of the exclusionary practices such as suspensions and expulsions.
All right, thank you. Looks like your colleagues have something to say on this as well. So I'd like to hear from them. And I think that concludes my questions.
Thank you, Mr. Wilcox. Ms. Gagliardi?
Yeah, I just wanted to add that students ask for the circles. I think, you know, again, with how do you measure that? But students seek me out daily, multiple times to say, can we have a circle around blank with, and they will name whoever that they feel like they're having an issue with, to prevent. And so I think that that is the most powerful part of this, is that they have the language around it, they have the comfort with it, and that they know it works to help to prevent something from truly bubbling to violence. So that has been for me the most effectiveness of it for this year. And I invite everyone on here to come into some of our schools, sit in a circle. We invite you to some of these. They are truly, I've had some this year that I will never forget. And I can say that I've had some in my past like 7 years of doing this that I'll never forget. But this year alone, some of our fifth graders are so insightful, and what comes out of them is amazing. So participate in them if you're able to.
Thank you. I will just add, when my spouse was volunteering more in the schools, she would also help run some circles, and yeah, when the students come, of course they would come to her, and it was, Miss, we better get a circle going or someone's going to get hurt and I'm going to hurt them. So it was like, yes, let's talk. So I mean, I know there's a lot of anecdotal evidence and the stories. You know, it's just basic. You treat people with the humanity, you know, respecting the humanity that we all have, and it's a process that does invite that.
Thank you, Mr. Wilcox and Ms. Gagliardi. Mr. Brown?
Hi, so I just wanted to comment on the measurement aspect. So I think it's really easy for us to measure how many people get suspended, right? It's really easy for us to measure how many students are not in school because of certain behaviors. But the tricky part when it comes to circles is how we measure the conflicts that we prevent. You know, how we measure the conflicts that get solved before there actually are issues. And the circles are the prime reason, circles, mediations, informal circles are the prime reasons why most of the conflicts don't happen. Now, how we track that, I guess we can develop systems, but the system that we already have of measuring how many people get suspended, that's what we can do. But if we could come up with a system as to how many behaviors were deterred, how many times students kind of seek out this support within the circle, once we develop that, then we could actually really compare them and say, wow, this work is so effective because of how it's compared to the negative. And I believe that, just for Hill House, for example, for today, we kind of anticipated it was going to be a rough day, but because the students were able to have the outlet in which they had and expressing themselves and being a part of the solution-making process, we didn't have any. It was one of the most smooth, I can say it now since the school day is over, we've had one of the most smooth days ever. And it was because students feel like they're part of the process.
Thank you, Mr. Brown. Ms. Munoz, I can't see the second last name, Gonzalez, Munoz Gonzalez.
Yep, I'm here as well. Thank you. I just kind of wanted to piggy off what Mr. Brown said. Like, I think as educators, we are constantly looking at those measurements. How did these kids grow? And when we don't see that result right away, we kind of maybe are a little backed off by it or are standoffish. And I think it's something that restorative practice teaches about, active listening and being able to speak in a way that you are respected, that to me is better than something that can be perhaps measured. At the PD that we had, we talked about that sometimes restorative practice circles is something that you implement in kindergarten, and you might start seeing results, the next year or 2 years after that. So I think even though it doesn't give us those results immediately, we are practicing those foundational skills such as listening and feeling respected and respecting others. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Thorne?
I would just like to add, everybody knows it's been a super challenging year. And one of the things that we planned early on was a great deal more professional development for staff so that they could become more proficient in doing this and more comfortable at all 3 levels of restorative practices. And that wasn't possible this year. We have staffing shortages. We don't have subs. There was to do it in the way that we had initially intended. And I'm hoping as this year progresses and into the early part of the summer, that we're able to figure out how to do some of this, because there are some key people that I think if we can get that training in place, and then we'll be in a better spot for next year for sure. And it'll be a little easier to see some of those numbers come down that we've been seeing. Kids are hypervigilant. There's violence all around us. And I think a lot of them are reacting to, during COVID, we know domestic violence rose. We know that murders rates rose. We know that people were isolated with those struggles, right? And our students saw that. And they came back to school with that on their shoulders. And if we already had this in place, we could have helped them right out of the chute if this had really been going on. But now we're sort of coming at it from behind a little bit. So I think we will get there, but I do think we need more PD. And I do think that Nikisha, Kador, and Sergio are fabulous. Everybody I'm working with is fabulous, but it's really building the capacity within each school. We really have to do that over the next couple of years.
Thank you, Ms. Thorne. Mr. Bolton?
Thank you, Madam President. I think the circles and restorative practice certainly works for those students that want to participate. I think it's a good tool in the kit, but it doesn't solve, obviously it doesn't solve all the problems. And I don't even know if it reaches the kids that we really need to reach. And those are the ones who have lost respect and fear of the adults and the leadership in these schools and each other. And let's be honest, this stuff, we started hearing about this stuff before COVID. we started hearing about these disciplinary problems in these schools, especially in the younger grades, before COVID came out. And it's just gotten worse since COVID. And, I'm getting calls almost daily when I could take them from somebody, a parent, security, teachers, other students who are saying that it's out of control. I understand. I got a story from someone about a teacher was attacked on a bus by students when he went up there and tried to restore order on a bus. It is, and the biggest complaint from all of these people to me is not that these kids are out of control, is that there's nothing being done about it, that they're not getting suspended, that they're not being properly disciplined. They're walking around the schools, cussing out teachers, and not being, and that's not being addressed. And I don't know if we swung too far to the other side. The pendulum has swung from suspending everyone from giving you the side eye to not suspending anyone for doing whatever they want to do. And I don't have data. I just have anecdotal data. People are calling me and saying, this is what's happening. Security guards are calling me and saying it's scary in these schools now. These kids are doing whatever they want to do and nothing's being done about it. And we got to be honest about that. And we got to figure out how to address the students that won't go to restoratives, that won't participate in restorative practice or participate in these circles. Those are the ones that we really need to address because they have no interest in changing their behavior. We got to figure out how to do that. And I don't have the answers. I'm just telling you the information I'm getting and what I'm hearing. So thank you for listening.
Thank you, Mr. Fulton. Ms. Thorne and then Mr. Brown.
So thank you, Mr. Golson. I just want to add to that a little bit. Suspensions are up, so they are happening. And they're not up by a little bit. And expulsions are up by a lot. So people are doing something. I will also say that in my work, a suspension is like sending somebody home for COVID. It's not safe. I need to send you home. Accountability happens when you can bring them back. And without accountability, you don't have anything to work with. I have worked with some gnarly students. And one of the things that, kids who fight all the time. And one of the things I discover when I ask them, if I could give one personality trait to everybody on the planet, the very kids who were just beating each other up say people would be kinder to each other. They stop ranking on each other. They really want the things that we want for them. They just don't know how to get there. And it's not going to happen in a minute. Up until this year, I was the only person really doing this for the entire New Haven Public Schools, which was really not, it's not a measurable, it's a task that was just nearly impossible. So I want to put it into context. This is really the first year where we've had any capacity to really reach all the schools in the way that we are. And people are being suspended. So I know that some people, that's a narrative, but I can tell you the data is there. They are suspending them, unfortunately.
Thank you, Ms. Thorne. Mr. Brown?
Hi, Mr. Golson, you are my fellow academic. Anytime I get a chance, I'm going to remind people of that fact. I just have to comment on two of the things that you said about where the restorative practices happen and what if a student does not want to be a part of it. Is the restorative practice model is really about the community, right, as a whole. So it's not as if we can say you're going to go to the room and get restorative practice. It's you're going to walk through the doors of the building and the practice of restoration is in the community. So it's more so about having community-based consequences and kind of switching our narrative from being so punitive to consequence-based. Wherever the harm was caused or wherever the harm might show up, that is where you might serve in order for you to get some type of reprimand, if we want to call it like that. But from our work at Hill House High School over the last couple of years, we've transformed the in-school suspension room to a restorative center, whereas you're going to come in and get reacclimated and get some restoration in the form of circles, in the form of conversations, in the form of community service, in the form of something other than sending you home, because we want to look at changing the behavior and not just giving the school a break from the kid, really changing the behavior so that it does not come around. It might not happen as immediately as a suspension, but it does happen through a progressive scale. So those are the things that we have to look at and say, hey, you know, let's try to get some measurable growth of the behaviors that are not happening.
Thank you, Mr. Brown. Mr. Bolton?
I just want to make sure I'm clear with my comments. I'm not suggesting that we should be punitive, that we should be suspending folks, because suspensions for some of these kids are just vacations. So that is not something that I endorse or support. I'm just saying that we should find some innovative ways to figure out how to change these behaviors. And I'm hoping that somehow you're involving the parents in that, because I mean, I know that I didn't act out in school because I didn't want to face the consequences at home. And I think we need to make sure that their support systems, particularly parents, are involved in whatever you're doing to make sure that behavior changes. Again, I don't have the answers, but I know what worked for me and my fellow, my siblings and cousins and fellow students. You know, so I'm hoping I'm hoping we, you know, I'm really concerned about where our children are heading, and our national leadership doesn't help with getting us to the right place. I mean, when we have a former president calling people names and suggesting that attacking other countries is a good thing, and suggesting that leaders who execute their members, if they don't follow their rules and leads, not good examples for our kids. And they're seeing, like Dr. Joyner said, they're seeing this on TV and in the news every day, and they're growing to be like that, authoritarian and violent. And we need to find a way to fix it. And our schools should be part of that fixing process. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Goldson.
Madam President, may I continue?
Sure.
Okay, so thank you for the discussion around what's happening in our schools. I do not expect the schools alone to be doing this work. It's all of us. And I do believe in the whole concept, it takes a village to raise our children. Many of our children are raising themselves, and that's a fact. That's a fact. They don't have parent figure, father figure. They do their own things. And so when they come to school and we're trying to give command to them when they're taking care of their own business, it's going to be tough. But it doesn't mean it's impossible to change mindsets, but it's going to take a while to change mindsets because certain habits are formed in the community or in the home or wherever they're formed, and we have to deal with those at school. So I can say from experience, I worked at the now defunct Jackie Robinson Middle School, and nobody wanted to work there, no one. But I took it up on myself to go there to teach reading to grades 5 through 8 students, and what a wake-up call that was. I've never seen a place like that in my entire life. But you know, staying with it, trying to understand the students, working with them, there was a breakthrough, at least in my classes, there was a breakthrough, and you get a sense of what was happening, to the extent that many of my students would tell me where in the community to go, where not to go. And I felt protected by the same students who were what they call troublemakers, because we made a connection. So go back to Comer talks about making relationship with students. Many of them, the relationship is not there. They're not going to listen to teachers, administrators, superintendents, board members, no one, because they take care of business themselves on the streets. So the entire school system, though, is not out of control. I want to be here to say that. The entire school system is not out of control. In schools, you have outliers that we know we have to work with, and I am proud of the work that Gemma and her team are doing with these students, reaching out in the community, getting community support for our students. They're students, we have to wrap our arms around them, because if we don't do it, we know what's going to happen to them. I have a student who is now a firefighter. I had a student. It was one of the toughest kids I've ever had. And he came back today to remind me of the fact. He said, you know what, you listened to me. You listened to me. I was going through so much at that time, but he's made something of his life. So many of these students who are giving problems in the school will turn out to be great people later on in life, but they're going through some things in their lives right now, which as the adults, we have to wrap our hands, heart, mind around them. Now, I'm not saying we're going to condone and tolerate disrespectful behaviors in our schools, but everyone has to work in support of these children. Are we going to lose them? We don't want to lose our kids. And some of the hardest, most troubled students, for whatever it is, will turn around. The challenge we have are those who display dysregulated behavior because of mental health issue. That's a great challenge, even from the elementary grades. That teachers were not trained to do that. Administrators were not trained to do that work. And that's why we have to rely on people who are specialists in these areas to help us as we wrap our arms around our students. So I just wanted to say that. And in the same vein, I want to say thanks to Gemma and her team for the work you're doing, because we have to do both sides. We have to do the restorative. We have to also carry out discipline when it warrants it. In that may seem negative to some people. So thank you for the work you're doing. Day of Hope and Healing, Tiffany Jackson and the SEL team, for the first time, we have a small SEL department that's working on creating activities for students and teachers. They've done a great job for the Day of Hope and Healing. Many teachers and administrators stepped up to the plate and made the day a memorable day for kids. I know we can't do this often, but we're hoping that staff will see a way of integrating social emotional learning systems into academic learning. So it seemed like something seamless. Some will listen, some will not listen. Some will like it, some will not like it. That's what it is like out there. But we can't stop trying. Our mission is to provide opportunities. So we can't stop trying, and we cannot give up on our young people. At least I'm not giving up, and I never give up on young people. The next part we have is Miss Lisa Mack, Miss Kanika Ingram. Is Kanika here?
Yes.
Miss Kanika Ingram, who is our senior talent recruiter, will be sharing with us some ways in which the department is trying to recruit staff for our school. And not everyone can teach in an urban school system. I'm going to say that, go on the record. Not everyone can really teach in an urban school system. I learned the hard way, but I did learn. Not everyone can. So our children are looking for role models. They're looking for people who understand them, and it's going to take a while to understand them, but we will not tolerate the cursing out of teachers, the excessive fighting that may be in some places. And that's why our suspension is up to 500 plus right now, because we're showing we're not, even though we love you, we're not tolerating those kinds of behaviors. And does suspension help? Maybe some students, maybe not, but at least the teachers get a break from what is happening currently. It's a temporary reprieve. And I really am appreciative of, where is he, Mr. Brown? I've seen him in action at Hill House High School. And those students love him and he's able to get through to them. So thank you all. Now go on, Ms. Kanika Ingram. Ingram Mann.
Thank you, Dr. Tracy, and thank you all for allowing Ms. Mack and I to present our recruitment plan to you all. I am going to share my screen. Okay, so the recruitment plan is aligned with Dr. Tracy's strategic plan for the 2020-24 school years. Our table of contents, we're looking at strategic recruitment plan. We're going to look at some data, New Haven as an employer of choice, interested in teaching, and then some funding sources from the Office of Human Resources. So as we look at our strategic recruitment plan, it's a multi-pronged plan. So the first thing we're going to do is examine our staffing needs. So what is needed for the remainder of the 2021-2022 school year, and what is needed for the 2022 and 2023 school year. From there, we'll develop our recruitment timelines. We'll look at our recruitment material. We'll develop them. We'll update them and make sure that they're extremely clear. We'll identify multiple sources and strategies for recruitment. We'll form recruitment and selection teams for all of our positions, and then we'll analyze the outcomes, the effectiveness of the recruitment sources and strategies, and then we'll start all over again. So as we look at this data, first, I want to thank John Nguyen, who is, I believe, the assistant principal over at Co-op High School, for helping us with this data. So currently we have about approximately 1,900 teachers within the school district. The vast majority of our teaching staff are Caucasian females with less than 10 years of experience who live outside of New Haven. So if you look at the two graphs, you'll see the racial breakdown. You'll see that almost 3% of our teaching staff is Asian, 14% identify as Black, 9% identifies as Hispanic, almost 1% identifies as other, and about 73% identify as white. We have about almost 75% who identify as female, and about 25% who identify as male. This graph here gives us a breakdown of our current staff by content area. So currently we have 536 elementary school teachers. We have approximately 197 special education teachers, 170 student services. So that includes everyone who's not in the classroom but helps with our students, school psychologists, social workers, etc. And then I'm not going to read them all to you, but you can look and see how the current staff stacks up. If you look over to your right, my left, you will see we have the data broken down by gender and race in each content area. So for example, if you look at elementary, we have 8 female Asian teachers, 58 female Black teachers, 29 female elementary teachers, and then other 2 elementary teachers, Caucasian 388. So you see, when we look at the racial makeup of the district, we want to make sure that our student population can mirror our staffing population. Sorry. Someone asked me about current staff and years of experience, right? So we gave this data in terms of how do you break that down and what does that look like? So about 26% of our teaching staff, they have 0 to 2 years of experience. We have about 12% that have 3 to 5 years of teaching experience, 20% 6 to 10 years of experience, 29% 11 to 20 years experience, and then 20 plus about 10%. And so we want to make this graph equal. So we want to make sure that we're looking at the 20 plus years of experience and the 3 to 5 years of experience when we are looking for new teachers. So the next couple of slides will go over the resignation data by year. So this will give you an opportunity to look at who's leaving the district and when. So if you look at 2017, 2018 data, we can see that, we have a fair number of teachers who left. It's about 135 total. And then you can see by month when they're leaving. So when we look at data and we try to figure out the trends and what's going to happen for the upcoming school year, we'll look at each month to see when we can anticipate teachers to leave. And as you can see, August, we have a high number of teachers who leave. And of course, that's because now districts are very anxious and nervous about ensuring that they have a teacher in every classroom. So they're trying to just grab teachers as they can. And then you also see in April and May an uptick, because also this is when school districts start heavily recruiting. What we need to also look at is who is leaving by subject area. So when we talk about our shortage areas, we always highlight special education, science, math. In the district, we highlight arts and music and also world languages. But as you can see, for the 17-18 school year, 14 special education teachers resigned, 11 science, 9 math, 9 grade 6 teachers, and 8 music teachers. So we need to look at this trend to see what is going on, especially in grade 6 in music and history. Why are those numbers so high? As we go to 19-20 school year, we tend to see, okay, what happened in this school year that we had so many resignations? So it went from 135 to 153. And again, you can see in August, we had 64 resignations. So Ms. Mack and I will look to say, well, what happened in this school year that 64 of our teachers resigned? September was also a very high number. We truly don't have a lot of teachers leave in September, but 21 left, and that is a very high number. So figuring out what was going on that year that we had 21 resignations. And as you can see, the other months are pretty standard. But again, if you look over at our subject chart, you can see special education, they had 19 teachers resign, math at 13, history at 12, grade 4 at 11, and world languages at 9, and music at 7. The 2021 school year, we know, was the pandemic year. And so you look at August, right? So we had 26. That's pretty on par to what we see with resignations. But then in April, you see we had 34 teachers resign. That is a high number. And again, special education topped the chart with 16 resignations. And then we look at grade 3. So we went from grade 6 to grade 3 with 10 teachers resigning. So what is going on in the elementary grades that we have so many teachers resigning? You can also look at grade 1, 7 teachers resigned. That's pretty high for elementary education. And then this school year, 21 to 22, again, we've had very high numbers, but we also know that we are still in the pandemic. So a lot of teachers are not leaving to go to other districts, they're leaving the profession altogether. But special education, again, tops the chart with 22 teachers resigning in the 21-22 school year, again, followed by grade 3, math, music, and science. So when we look at hiring, we hired approximately 19 teachers between January of 2017 and December of 2021. And again, the racial breakdown, we have our Caucasian teachers at 61%, Asian teachers at 2.32%. Why is this keep doing this? Sorry. Our Black teachers at 14%, Hispanic teachers at 12%, and other at 9.5%. And again, most of our teachers are female. This data just shows where our New Haven Public School alumni are coming from. So these are our students who actually graduated from New Haven Public Schools, went on to post-secondary education, not necessarily majored in education, but became certified to teach, and then came back to New Haven to teach. So we see that Southern tops the chart with 256 of our alumni, followed by the University of Bridgeport, Quinnipiac University, University of Connecticut, and Sacred Heart. But it's a good mixture here on this list. Our recruitment timeline. So fall 2021, what did we do in the Office of Human Resources? So between July and September of 2021, we did fall recruitment. We went to some job fairs virtually. We partnered with Southern Connecticut State University, and I'll talk about that in a minute. And we also did interviewing and early hiring. What helps New Haven a lot is early hiring. So this is when we meet students either at their university or at a career fair, and we're able to offer them a position for the upcoming school year, so we know that that spot is secure. Between October and December, again, we're doing a lot of interviewing, and now we're still doing our onboarding. And then January of 2022, we're interviewing, onboarding, and doing fall recruitment. And this is for the classrooms that are still looking for classroom teachers. Our spring 22 timeline is very similar to our fall. So between March and May, we do spring recruitment. We have career fairs in person and virtually. We're doing a lot of interviewing to hire our teachers. And again, we are definitely instituting that early hiring process. From June to September, we are still hiring and doing onboarding to ensure our goal is always, right, we want to have 100% of the classrooms filled. That is a goal that we always strive to achieve. Between September and November, we're still doing interviewing, we're onboarding. Now we're doing fall recruitment for the upcoming school year with career fairs in person and virtually. This is a look at where New Haven Public Schools has been fall of 2021 and where we will be for spring of 2022. So these are all the career fairs that we will be attending or have attended within the last several months. Our partnerships, which are very near and dear to me, this is one of the favorite parts of my job, is making sure that our current employees, have access to grow. So we partner with the Relay Graduate School of Education. We've been doing that for several years, and that is an alternative route to certification. This is for current employees who actually hold a bachelor's degree and would like to get certified in teaching. Last year, what we did was we focused on paraprofessionals who wanted to teach. We had 12 individuals in the 2021 cohort, and we have 10 who are actually teaching full-time within the district. We also have partnered with Teach for America for many years. Last year, they did not have a cohort. They kind of revamped their program. They have a new executive director, which is great. So we've been working with her, and we're trying to fill some of our shortage areas with some of the. Southern has always been a partner with us. They have been great to us, and I think we've been good to them. But this year we have a brand new program. It's called Pathway to Teaching. So this program took mostly paraprofessionals who have a bachelor's degree who wanted to teach. They enrolled in Southern's Masters of Arts in Teaching program. We hired them as a full-time teacher. So simultaneously they're teaching and they're in a teacher preparation program. The goal is for them to graduate in May of 2023, fully certified, where we can hire them off of the ESSER grant into full-time positions. We also met with Southern this week. There's a new program through the State Department of Education called the Resident Educator Certificate Program. We are going to start a cohort with the special education teachers. And this is a 3-year program, and we'll have more information on that to come, but we're so excited for this program as well. We've been working with Pedro really, really closely on bringing in our bilingual teachers and our TESOL teachers. He works really closely with the state on the ARCTEL program. So this is a cross endorsement only. So you have to be certified already to get this certification. And each year we bring in maybe 3 or 4 teachers through this program. So we're hoping to grow that a lot more. Last year, we've also partnered with Educator Rising. It is a program that is housed at James Hill House High School. It's essentially bringing back their teacher preparation program that they had many years ago. Students are able to take courses at Southern and Quinnipiac University, which is great. And this model is really shaping them to understand and appreciate the profession of teaching. And hopefully they'll go into a career of teaching. And we're hoping to launch this program in middle school in 2023. We are also in great conversation with Goodwin University about an early college program or grow your own teaching pipeline, which is expected to also launch in 2023 with several high schools within our district. Again, we partner with Pedro to bring teachers to Connecticut from Spain. All of our teachers have J1 visas. This year, we have 12 new hires within the district. They're all on 2-year contracts, and I'm happy to say that their 2nd-year contract has been approved. And also, we have a great partnership with Quinnipiac. We do mock interviews with them. It's not only a good way for them to get comfortable with interviewing, but it's a nice way for the district to be able to meet some prospective teachers early on. And they will also be a partner with us in the educator, the resident educator certificate program. Funding sources. So in the summer of 2021, myself and a former colleague, we were presented with a grant from the Brownstein Foundation, and she and I sat down together along with Assistant Superintendent Velasquez and wrote the proposal. And I'm happy to say the first year we were awarded $100,000. And it has changed over the last couple of years just because our programming has changed. And so with the first $100,000, what we've been doing is we've been paying for the books for all of the students who are enrolled in the current Southern program. We've also paid the balance of the tuition for all the employees who were in the 2021 relay cohort. And we're paying the tuition of the one student who is currently in the relay cohort now. We've also partnered with Elm City Communities to create an educators incentive program. So this program is twofold. One is that we have a program called the Teacher in Resident Program. And this is where we have one New Haven public school teacher that is allowed to live in one of the Elm City community residents rent-free in exchange for after school and summer programming work. And so right now we're currently looking for another teacher because our current teacher is moving on, which is great. She actually purchased a home. So that was great. And we also are looking at serving teachers who move into New Haven from out of state with the possibility of living in Elm City community housing as well. Oh, one of my slides got cut off, but that is okay. So this is the presentation in terms of recruitment and what we're doing over the next several months to ensure that our classrooms are filled, but also to ensure that any of our employees who are looking to move from one position into teaching, that we have several pathways for them to do that. I thank you for your time and any questions.
Thank you, Ms. Ingram. Questions or comments, Dr. Benitez?
First, Kanika, it's great to see you. Thank you for the report. I found many good things that are continuing to happen. That's awesome. I have a question. I still don't understand the early recruitment. I understood that happens in July. Is that correct?
The early hiring?
Early hiring, something you mentioned, it was an early,
so
and
it
was actually, let me go to the, you have a slide that had a really good graphic. Where is it? Page.
Page 16.
Yes, thank you, Dr. Yarborough. For recruitment, and it says July to September. Is that where early hiring happens, as is noted by that bullet?
So it continues right through July, but we try to start as early as this month in March. So the next slide shows for spring of 2022. We try to start early hiring now so we can secure spots for next school year. So as Lisa noted on the personnel report, there were 2, I believe, school psychologists who we hired now but they're not until next year.
Yes, that was very reassuring to me. I don't know if you've heard my comments on other meetings, but I'm always very concerned that with the time that principals have for hiring, when they are actually allowed to provide you with a name for the following year. So it's inspiring to see that if they can send you a name now, you would hire them. Because that to me is one of the challenges we have. So I just wanted to understand if indeed, if a principal has a position open today for next year, they know they will have that position open, they will be able to interview and hire at this point. Is that correct?
That is correct.
That is correct. And what we're offering also, hi everyone, of course, Lisa Mack, HR Director. What we are planning on doing with our in-person recruitment fair that we're hosting on April 28th, and more details to follow, because we do want the branding and messaging to be a community collaboration, board participation and collaboration as well, that we're going to offer contingent contracts on site for vacancies that we know we have. But of course, contingent contracts mean that they have to meet the minimum requirements once we take it back and vet the information. But we do want to get ahead of the game, simply because educators are leaving the districts in droves, not just New Haven, across the country. And so we have to be intentional and strategic on the best way to make New Haven Public Schools the employer of choice. And that's going to take not just the work of the Office of Human Resources. I'm hoping that we can collaborate, continuous collaborations, and strengthen our community partnerships throughout the city and our New Haven communities, because I think we all play a role in to ensuring that New Haven has the best talented educators in front of our students. And one of our goals is to ensure at the start of the new 2022-23 school year that we have every classroom filled with a certified teacher, and so students are ready to learn with educators in front of the classrooms.
Okay. Thank you. You answered my question.
You're welcome.
Any other? Dr. Yarborough?
Thank you very much. And Ms. Ingram-Mann, good to see you, and just thank you for your work, and thank you for the team and department's work on what you're doing. And, you know, I really appreciate kind of the multi-step approach to the data. It's like having the data, but then also asking questions around, you know, why is this change happening here, and what is this observation, and what does it mean, and is it something for us to get ahead of, and you know, where does it indicate something good that's happening with our school district? So I really do just appreciate the care, the attention to detail that's happening. I have maybe a question for a future conversation, and it's around just ensuring that we have the outcomes that we need when the school year starts and throughout the year. And I wrote down kind of two main things that are standing out to me from the conversation today. One is that we have full teaching, that we have a full teaching and staff bench of talented educators. And in my mind, I'm thinking no vacancies, so that our district can breathe in terms of sharing the load, and also in terms of supporting our new efforts that we know our district needs to be healthy and to support the students who are in front of us. And the second piece that comes to my mind is around our hires and retention that support our needs as an urban school district, and even specifically matching our diversity strengths. And my question is, in the spirit of having kind of no regrets when the school year starts, whether it's already in place or if we can develop goals such that as we move through our months, we see, okay, we're on target, we're on plan to meet the objectives we set out, or, you know, we're not on target, we're not meeting these objectives, and let's do a change of course while we still have time and resources to do so in order to make the adjustments we need in order to get to the beginning of next school year in a strong way. So that's my kind of, it's a concern, but it's just a real big hope that we have something in place where we can kind of measure ourselves as we go along, just so that we have no regrets at the end. Anything to speak of around that, whether we already have it or something we can look into?
It's good to see you as well, Dr. Yarbo. And thank you for your questions, because they were thought-provoking for Lisa and I. And I mean, so we can always strengthen our metrics, but we do have metrics in place. So we can see what our vacancies are, and we can see when we fill them. We can even look to see who are we looking for that can fit that vacancy, because some of our vacancies have very specific needs. Dr. Tracy hit it on the head when she said not everybody can be an urban school teacher. So we vet our prospective employees very well. But I would love to have an additional conversation with you about what that metric could look like and how we can grow it.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Thank you. Yeah, and I would love to be a part of that conversation. And then the last question, our partners that we have that help to maybe provide a pipeline for teachers to New Haven, are there additional partners that we want to look for where the teachers can come in ready with some of the qualities for an urban school district that would really make a difference for us?
Yes, we are always looking for new partners. We're actually in conversation with Grand Canyon University in terms of looking at our employees who have an associate's degree and they want to finish their bachelor's, or like a finishing program, and then the ones who have a high school diploma and they want to go to that next step. But we need to make sure that all the partnerships that we want to bring to the district, that we have the human capital and capacity to make sure that we can sustain all of these partnerships. So we're being very intentional about who we partner with, when we partner with them, because we don't want to have all these partnerships and then we can't sustain it.
Yes, yeah. And I'm curious whether there are minority serving organizations where, you know, just because somebody looks like me doesn't necessarily mean they're qualified to do a particular thing. But thinking about those who are qualified and even those who could be role models for our students who may want to go on and teach and be educators. I'm thinking about, you know, whether there are minority serving organizations, maybe big ones that can be a pipeline for us where we can sustain that partnership. So thank you very much.
Yes, that's a great comment, because we do. So Gateway Community College is one of, I believe, 4 Hispanic serving institutions in Connecticut. And so to be in HSI, you have to have at least 25% of your population a full-time undergraduate who identifies as an Hispanic person. And so what's nice about that is because Gateway has articulation agreements with Quinnipiac and all of the state schools, and then we partner with those state schools and Quinnipiac University, we intentionally recruit those students to come to New Haven Public Schools. So things like that we do. It may not be a direct partnership, but we are intentional about how we partner.
Great. Thank you so much.
I'll just have Ms. Hannah.
It's okay.
Go ahead, Ms. Hannons.
Good evening, everyone. I'll talk a little bit about the Educators Rising program that Ms. Ingram Mann mentioned, just because it's a new program with the Connecticut State Department of Education. As she mentioned, it's being, we currently have it implemented at Hill House. We have 30 students that are part of the program at this time, and they're also taking classes at Quinnipiac and Southern. But I had the opportunity of attending the state conference at Hill House, and this is a national program for children, minority children that are interested in education. And if we truly could ensure that we continue this partnership, it's not only going to grow our own, but we can also attract other minority students from across the state and nationally as well. So this partnership, to your point, Dr. Yarborough, around an organization or someone that we can partner with that develops a pipeline, I see the possibilities, I see the opportunities that are present there. And I was very impressed by what I was able to observe, and as well as the students' input in this particular program. So it's something that we will definitely continue and hope to grow even stronger.
That's great. Thank you.
So I have a couple of questions before I call on Mr. Wilcox and Mr. Goldson. I would have liked to have seen a slide, and this is just an observation. I did mention it to Dr. Tracy earlier. I would have liked to have seen a slide with the racial breakdown of the New Haven Public Schools students to kind of go along the racial breakdown with the teachers. But I did ask her through email, and the response that she gave was that we have 36% student population is Black or African American, and 48% is Hispanic. And then what she said was the rest were Caucasian and others. So I don't know what the exact breakdown of those were. And I'm thinking we are an urban school district, and 36% Black students, 48% Hispanic students, and yet we're only at a little over 14% Black teachers, and a little over 9%, 9.5% Hispanic and Latino teachers. I don't know. I see that as a little bit of an issue, and I'm wondering, what are we doing to make sure that we're targeting that population of teachers when we're doing our recruiting? Because I didn't see that articulated here, unless I missed it somehow.
So it's definitely twofold, Madam President, just because there's a national shortage of Black and Hispanic teachers. It's not just a New Haven shortage. So growing our own is going to be one avenue that we have to go. And then we are intentionally reaching out to, like I was telling Dr. Yarborough, that partnership with Gateway, Southern, and Quinnipiac, because they are a Hispanic serving institution. Now, there are, I believe, about 100 other Hispanic serving institutions that we need to start recruiting at. But again, there needs to be more human capital, right? So we need to have more support in terms of how we recruit, because it's not in Connecticut, right? So if we're going to California, we're going to Florida, we're going to Texas. Danny, Rosalind, and Pedro do a great job with going to Puerto Rico, right? So when I talked about those recruitment teams, right? So if we're looking at those teams, those are people who are going to go to different places to help us recruit, because I can't physically be in every in-person event or every virtual event at one time. So again, it's really making sure that we work together, that we get out of our silos and just work together. Like I had a conversation with Gemma and her team, and we're putting some things together with her community partners, right? So it's just really slowly working that. So we are being extremely intentional about who we recruit and where we recruit. But if you have any suggestions, feel free to reach out to Ms. McElroy. You may know some institutions, you may know some other stakeholders that can point us in the right direction, because we're always willing to research to make sure and see if this is a good fit for us as we continue to recruit for the district.
And I want to jump in and just add one comment, two things I want to say. First, Ms. Ingram, Mann, thank you again for this amazing job you did this evening. I truly appreciate the work that you do. With regards to recruitment, so we do have a partnership, and Ms. Ingram Mann mentioned that during her presentation, with Southern Connecticut State University, where we had the opportunity to capitalize on the ESSER funds. And this is a grow your own effort internally, where we have approximately 50 internal staff members who are part of this massive art and teaching program where they're going to be certified if they complete the program successfully. And they will graduate in May of 2023. What's important to highlight is that we're talking 50 grow your own. almost difficult to recruit across the country and get 50 applicants. We have internal staff that we're moving trajectory, upward mobility, to allow them to teach while they earn their master's degree and essentially double their salary, because we looked at paraeducators internally within our district. And so this is one of our efforts, not only to recruit outside the district, and I'd be remiss if I didn't mention the work that Pedro did by onboarding 11 teachers from Spain. And so that there brings the bilingual support. This is another effort that we have. I know that we want to have a diverse population of students, staff to mirror or to at least closely align to the student population. And that takes work. And that takes work from all of us have playing a part in this. And it's not something that's going to happen overnight. So again, we welcome, our doors are always open and welcome the ideas, the suggestions, and how we can partner together and strengthen together and collaborate together in order to see the numbers that we want to see. And President Yesenia, I agree with you. I know the population of the Latino population of students is growing. And so we do need to diversify our staffing to align it to it be more balanced. And that's something that every district in Connecticut and every district in the country is struggling with right now, because what we're doing in Connecticut, we're recycling the same teachers within Connecticut. We need to do something different and be strategic and intentional if we want to have a different outcome.
I agree, but I'm looking at your careers fair for 2022 and the listing of the fairs that you have there doesn't tell me much for Hispanic and Latino recruiting. On top of that, when I mentioned the statistics and talked about us being an urban school district, I mentioned both African American and Latino, and yet you guys are talking to me like I'm only talking about Latino students, which I get because I've mentioned this before, but I'm talking about the entire picture, the inclusion of that, because we are an urban district. And I mean, I'm happy that you're thinking about the Hispanic and Latino side of things, but it's everything. It's a picture as a whole. And so in my mind, I'm thinking what, and I've already said it, like what exactly are we doing to make sure that we're addressing that? Because it's not about, I've heard people say, oh, she's being racist or being exclusive. It's not about being racist or about exclusion. It's about making sure that, like I've said before, our staffing mirrors what our student population is. And right now we're seriously lacking in that regard. But I'm gonna let that go for now because I have other questions. You mentioned that you were at, or you didn't mention that, I don't think in person, but in your slides, I read something about virtual and in person. How many of these sessions are virtual and in person, and which ones are the in person?
So most of them are virtual. And if I'm looking down my list, ours will be in person, which is on Thursday, the 28th. And I think that is the only one on the list that is in person on this actual list.
So I'm not an HR professional and I'm not in education, right? But I think that's going to present some challenges in your hires.
Well, that's just the way the career fairs are. I'm sorry.
Yeah, that we only have the one in person. I don't know.
Well, there's nothing we can do about that. Yeah, there's nothing we can do about that. That's what the actual university and or organization has chosen to do because of the pandemic, is to be virtual. So whenever there are in-person ones, we will definitely be there as well. So that's why I said in-person and virtual, depending on what is out there for us. And I just want to thank Dr. Tracy and Ms. Hannons and Tiffany for, this is the first time that Human Resources has a budget to recruit. So I intentionally put the cost of the fairs because usually we were only doing the free fairs. So we would have to only go to those. So now we have a true budget and we can do a lot more. So I hope our budget continues to grow. But this is a great first step. And I'm just really happy that we can do some true recruiting with our budget.
Okay, and then my next question is, how are we letting people know that these fairs are happening? How are we advertising this and where?
Our personal fair.
Mhm.
Yep. So
As
the
well
Flux,
as the others, I'm guessing the other universities that is taking the initiative on the.
so usually if the fairs were in person, we would put them on our website so people can attend. When they're virtual, they're only for the folks who attend that particular university and or college. So what we do is we advertise on their website that we will be there so they can come to our booth. For our fair, we'll have a flyer that should be out by the end of this week that we're going to do a blast with. We're sending it all over. We're going to put it in the paper. We're trying to have a radio spot ad. We're trying to have a billboard because, like I said, we have a tiny budget now. So we're hoping to make this in-person fair on Thursday, April 28th from 3 to 7 at the Field House as big as it can possibly be.
Okay, and where are you advertising our fair? Like what radio stations, what newspapers?
I don't
Do we
have the
know
list
yet?
in front of me. No, I do know. I don't have, I'm sorry, I don't have it in front of me. I can send that to you first thing tomorrow morning. But definitely WYBC. We have been in contact with Connecticut Works, the Connecticut Unemployment Office, the Inner City newspaper, New Haven Register, the Independent. And there are a whole list of other ones that now, because we have a budget, we can advertise in. So I will send you that list tomorrow.
Okay, thank you. That's it for now. Mr. Wilcox and then Mr. Golton.
Yes, thank you very much. And thank you, Ms. Ingram-Mann and Ms. Mack for the presentation and for the data, especially because you're talking about having a budget to do the recruitment and everything, and I think that's great. I also am happy that you all are able to do what you're able to do with the size of the department. I was recently looking at other district websites, and it's surprising the size of our human resources department compared to someplace like Hartford, and the money that they can put towards it. So I'm hoping we can figure out ways to increase that so that there's more staff that are able to do this recruiting. A question I had, and I think it might have already been answered, but so I'll sometimes hear from folks that have some ideas about recruiting teachers or principals or others. What's the best way if somebody has an idea or wants to provide some input? What's the best way to do that for you all?
To email me directly.
Okay,
Me.
email both of you would be
No,
the way
yes.
to go.
Okay, yes. I was going to say not Miss Mack. Yes.
We can tag team it. We wear multiple hats because we're such a lean department. So their work again shouldn't just fall on Ms. Ingram-Mann. It shouldn't just fall on us. We have to work collaborative to move this work together. And again, I've said it a couple of times. I'm going to continue to say this. It's not an Office of Human Resource Recruitment Planning. I think it takes the district, it takes the board, it takes our community partnerships, and I certainly think in order to move this work, it's continuous. It's not just a season, it's a year long.
Mm-hmm. And that goes to my second question or point I wanted to make, which was, so I work at Quinnipiac University, and one of the things that they've really started to do over the last year, as they brought in some new leadership, is really bringing home the idea that all the staff, all the faculty, all the teachers, everybody, custodial, groundskeepers, everybody is a recruiter in the admissions department for the university in helping bring in students. And all of us are part of the HR department when it comes to recruiting other faculty and staff and for all the different things. So what they've been doing is trying to make it easy for us to be able to do that, making sure we know this is the website, this is the process, this is, here's 3 reasons why you should come to this university. And so it's a relatively low cost way to make it easy for people like us to be able to say, this is why you might want to come teach, or why you might want to come and work in various other positions in the district. So, so if there's, I just would encourage you all to be thinking about that, or at least bringing forward information like this periodically and reminders of this is how we can help that process to help folks want to come here. It's as Dr. Tracy was saying earlier, it's not working in a place like New Haven is not going to be for everyone, but it's probably for more people that are thinking about it now. So
right, that is the goal, to spread the word. Let everyone know that there, even we do parent links that we're always looking for substitute teachers. We're all looking for our summer. We're starting to gear up for our summer hires. If we could, a lot of people like social media. Put on your social media page. We want to be a community, be an advocate for how we want New Haven to appear in the public eye in the community. All the great things are happening in New Haven, and there are opportunities here for New Haven community residents, and as well as for anyone interested in teaching in New Haven public schools, or just being a part of New Haven public school community, because there's more positions than just teaching. There are other positions as well. And as people continue to move up within the district, there are other opportunities for them as well. I always believe that a teacher's assistant is, if you're interested in teaching, a great opportunity is to be a teacher's assistant or to be a substitute teacher, to get a really good visual of what it's like to teach in an urban school district. Student teaching, oftentimes when we do mock interviews with Quinnipiac, when I sit down with the students and they share where they had their student teaching, and it's a vast difference from Darien, Connecticut to New Haven public schools. So you really want that urban experience. You want to have your experience at an urban school district. So again, I think it takes, as they say, a village. It really does take a village in order to recruit, to intentionally recruit the staff that we want here with our district, within our district.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Goldson?
Thank you, Madam President. A couple of points to reiterate. Mr. Wilcox comment that our department is much smaller. Our recruiting department is much smaller than other urban districts in similar size. Our HR department. Another point to reiterate was the two teachers who spoke at the beginning of our meeting and talked about teachers being recruited away because of our lower pay scales. Certainly probably part of the issues around recruitment are resources, the need for resources, right? And we as a board approve a budget every year. And I think that the staff was being very kind when they're saying they got a small budget this year to do some recruiting, but it's very small. And it's not where it should be. And it's our responsibility as board members to push this issue and approve a budget that has recruitment in there and sets goals. I mean, we should be going to job fairs in Puerto Rico and Spain and wherever else we need to go, but they need the resources to be able to do that. And we can't say go and do it and not give them the resources to do it. So for me, that's super important. I also like to say that I have always advocated for African-American contractors, African-American teachers, African-American issues on this board. Everybody knows that. But at the same time, I was a student of the school system, and I was taught by white teachers. I was taught by Black teachers, and the good teachers didn't matter what color they were. The good teachers really made a difference in my life. And when we got to be careful when we talk about, we should be recruiting. We should give everyone equal access to be able to work in our system, right? Whether they're Black, Hispanic, white, Asian, whatever. They should have equal access. I mean, I think that's the biggest point that we should make. And if our student population is, I don't know what the numbers were, Ms. Rivera said earlier, 48
It's
38.
not looking like 36.
Right. We certainly should want to see those numbers reflected in our teacher corps and our administrative corps and so on. But it shouldn't be the goal. The goal should be to get good teachers into this system who could teach our kids, and that's what and I'm always going to make sure that when I say that, I qualify it with, but to make sure that everybody has a fair chance to be considered a good teacher, and I hope that we go in that direction. But I'm gonna challenge this board, and let's give them an adequate budget and beef up that department. So and look at eventually how we could be competitive with the salaries around us. We've been doing that over the years, looking at paras and looking at substitutes, trying to figure out how to be more competitive. We got more competitive in the substitute salaries, and we still couldn't, as far as I could understand, recruit substitute teachers because they weren't available. And you can't, unlike Jesus, we can't make wine out of bread out of rocks or whatever. I'm not a good theologist. So. I'm not a good theologist. So please excuse that. I went somewhere I shouldn't have gone. But but I hope that we decide to put our money where our mouths are, and if we want to see the kind of workforce that we say we want to see, then let's put the money into it to figure out how to get there. Thank you, Madam President.
Thank you, Mr. Golton. Dr. Yarborough?
Yes, thank you. And also saw Dr. Tracy's hand.
I'm going to need to see virtual hands because I can't see everybody's doing this.
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay, so thank you. One request I have is for an HR budget that the board can approve. I would love to see an HR budget and a plan that allows us to have the human capital that we need in order to meet the objectives that we have. I'm new, so I don't know if it was presented at some point, but I really request that if that's part of what needs to happen, because I appreciate the conversation. I did hear that we need more human capital to recruit, probably in terms of strategy, but also particularly out of state for some of our out of state partners. And even as our graduates go out of state for schooling and education, to be able to meet them where they are and their peers and to recruit. At a graduate school level as a student, I remember being the only Black male, Black person in my incoming class in my particular program, and the Black male in my department. I remember going to national conferences out of state to recruit, and it was taxing on top of the additional work that I needed to do. And it resulted in more students coming to the graduate program because, as was spoken before, just about connection, a connection was made and people saw, wow, like you took this extra step to come here and see me, then I'm gonna come visit your program and see what it's like. So I would love for us to have, to see the budget so that we can approve it. Or whatever the strategy is in order to get the HR personnel we need to continue to support the HR team now and what you are doing. And the last thing I'll say is in regards to kind of what's happening nationally in terms of teachers and in the education field, let's be the district that does achieve the outcomes we want. Let's be that district that does achieve the outcomes that we need and that we want, because ultimately the students will win. I mean, we'll say we accomplished our goal, but the students will win. And when we don't achieve it, I think it will ultimately be the students who don't win. So I would like us to do whatever we need to do. And for me to step in place and to do whatever I need to do to help in this effort so that we can meet the objectives that we need in order to give our students what they need. So thank you, Madam President.
Thank you, Dr. Yarborough. Dr. Tracy?
I think great discussions, and I, for one, I want to keep hope alive. Keep hope alive. Many of us who have been around in New Haven public schools know that every single year, there's a revolving door of more than 150 teachers here in New Haven for all that many years that many of us have been here. Why is this revolving door? Why are some people staying and some are not staying? We're getting to the heart of that. Many teachers, as a team said, they're leaving the profession. They don't even want to teach. They're leaving. Why are they leaving the profession and don't want to teach? Working with students at Southern for 30-something years, you just, over the years, you see the number of students who are dwindling. They don't want to go into education. They wanted to go into allied health, into business, because they believe they can make more money going into those fields. They run away from the field of education. Many years ago, we started teacher, I think the teacher prep program at Hill House, I think it was. Was under the Macy's program, am I right, Darnell? There was a teacher education program that we started where we were going with growing our own students through a program. Somehow that crashed. Not sure. We're trying to resurrect that through Educator Rising program again, to go back to where we started, growing our own students. But people are not breaking down the doors to be teachers. I just need us to understand that. They're not breaking down the doors to be teachers. It's a tough job. It's not easy to teach. Been there, done that. At one point, I thought I was just going to quit the profession totally, but I stayed with it. But it's not an easy job to teach. And even though teaching is enjoyable when you get the knock of things, it becomes very enjoyable because you get to have the relationship with kids and they're listening to you and participating. It's a hard job. And not everyone is going to want to stay to work so hard, unless it's your vocation in life. Now, there are many teachers, it's my vocation. I'm not doing anything else. It's what I was born to do, and I'm going to continue doing it. And so we have those teachers who have that longevity, and no matter what, they're still there 30, 35 years. I'm saying, really? Teachers should be able to retire like policemen are able to retire early, because it's a tough job. I'm just saying that. It's a tough job, and people don't understand how tough it is to be a classroom teacher, especially these days. And so, as Dr. Yarborough talks about the whole idea, and I've been hearing it through Darnell and others, about how maybe I shouldn't say that I'm superintendent, but how we actually, we have to have the resources to pay our teachers. And it's much more than pay. Because I don't want to have a teacher who I'm paying a high salary to and they're not doing their job, right? So you have to look at both ways. Do you really want to be a teacher? Do you really want to teach in New Haven public schools? Why do you want to be in New Haven public schools? What are you contributing to New Haven public schools? And I don't want to hear because, the kids need me, because then I wouldn't hire you. If you say the kids need you. It's what is it you're bringing to the table to incentivize, to help my kids to grow, to make them want to love learning, what have you. So it's not easy. There's not a lot of teachers out there. It's even worse now. And I said something in a meeting not too long ago. I wish I could create teachers or create workers for the system, because it's not just teaching folks right across the sector. Paras, teachers, custodians, security guards, administrative assistants, it's right across the system, not just in New Haven, but in other places. And we see the drain with special education in particular. There's a drain. As soon as they come, it's like a revolving door, they're gone again. There's a drain. Some may say it's more salary. Some may say I'm moving back to my community from which I start, from whence I came. All those things are happening.
We also have to think about the male counterpart. Where are they? Where are the Latino and African males? Where are they? Hard to find wanting to teach. It's hard to find. So any of you on this board right now can lead us to areas where we can find these people. Let us know, as long as we have the vacancies. Because we can't hire and have them stacked there either. They have to come in to fill vacancies. Does that make sense? It has to be vacant. Ms. Jackson?
I think all those reasons that you just talked about are even strengthen our point that we have to get more creative about recruiting. And I think that we can find good qualified teachers who are going to represent our district, who are going to reflect the student population in our district. I think we can find them. We just have to go out of our normal recruiting process and do something just a little bit different. I don't think that there's a shortage of qualified Black and Latino teachers. I don't. I think we have to go find them. And we have to tailor our recruiting to finding them. That's my 2 cents.
And
Mr. Golson?
President.
Go ahead, Dr. Tracy.
It is not just about tailoring recruitment to find them. They have to want to work. They have to want to work. So, and also we have to keep them. Another thing that impacts our community of people, and I'm going to be frank with this. We hire a lot of folks and we desat them and they end up not passing the test and we have to let them go. I know the State Department had done something about, what did you call it? They got rid of some portions of some tests to make it
practice.
What was it called?
There are certain parts of the practice that they have gotten rid of for certain positions, like some non-classroom positions, but the primary, you still have to pass practice 1 and 2. And some programs you may not have to, they waive practice 1 to get into teaching programs. So yeah, the bottom line is, obviously there are educators out there that we may be able to find. However, they have to first, and this is all educators, meet the requirements to become an educator. Where they have to be certified or we have to be on a trajectory to become certified. Of course, in shortage areas like special education, math, the state declared a shortage area, which are shortage areas now too, including art and music. They have to meet the requirements in order to maintain their certification. You cannot serve in a public school district without being certified. So I'm sure we can find a group of interested applicants, but you have to meet the minimum requirements in order to become an educator. And so I don't believe it's as easy as I said. There are teachers, interested applicants sitting in a certain location that we can gather them higher. If it was that easy, every district in Connecticut would have these educators and it wouldn't be a national problem. It is a national problem.
It is, and I think one of the things that I argue with other folks about around the state is, I don't understand why someone goes to school, they spend 4 years slaving at getting a degree, 4 years working hard, getting the degree. You have to do tests and quizzes right within those programs. And then you come back out and you have to do tests again to show that. And passing a test does not mean you can teach. Many have passed the test and they're disasters. So, oh my goodness, my teachers are going to come after me, but many have passed the test and they're disasters in the classroom. And Abby, she knows that. Some people who do not even pass tests, they do such a great job and you wonder, why are we making testing a factor in this thing? You get your degree, you should be ready to roll, right? But nurses, psychologists, teachers who are all teachers. I mean, psychologists are considered teachers. Everyone have to go through another level and do a test. So you can have your degree and then you don't pass the test and you can't work in your area in which you went to school for. That's another issue that we're faced with. We have had to let go of folks who we DSAP hoping that they would pass the test. They didn't pass it. We have to let them go. That's creating more shortage.
Thank you, Dr. Tracy. Mr. Goldson?
Thank you, Madam President. Creativity is not cheap. It costs money to be creative. Like Miss Mack said, they're not just sitting there waiting for us. We have to go out and find them. And if you go back 5.5, 6 years to my first board meeting, I looked at the blue sheet and I was in shock because we had teachers that were coming on at $45,000, $47,000. I mean, they've gone through 4 years of college, certification, student loans, and they're starting a job at $45,000. We have security officers who were coming on making more money their first year our teachers were. If you look at our blue sheet today, we have an art teacher who is apparently, art is one of our areas where we're short. We have an art teacher at Troop, which is not an easy school to teach at, starting at $45,000. $45,000. I mean, you could go work at Amazon and probably make that much without having a college degree and student loans. Now, I know the longer you stay in, the better it gets after a while. But, I'm shocked that I was in shock then, I'm in shock now that people would go through that process to become a teacher, which is not easy, and then get into a system that pays them $45,000. That's almost, that is almost poverty wages. It really is. And so it costs, it's to be creative. You have to have the resources, and we have to figure out how we could provide other incentives. If it's not money, other incentives for these teachers to make it worth their while to come to New Haven and teach in this urban district, which is not an easy, as all of you have said at one time or another during this conversation. They have to know how to teach in an urban district. It's a different animal. So I would again challenge the board. Let's put our money where our mouths are and figure out how to get this done. Thank you, Madam President.
Thank you, Mr. Goldson. Dr. Benitez?
I wholeheartedly agree with Mr. Golson that we need to put more money into that office. I mean, not only we're talking about recruitment, finding these people wherever they are. I mean, we have gone to 2 places that people have mentioned. We've gone, usually we have gone to the Black colleges to recruit people, and through the alternative routes, we were able to get minority people to fall in love with New Haven. I was one of them. And, but one thing is that we do have to provide them with the resources. And not only that, not just for recruiting, for retention. Once we get these people in, we have to retain them. And we need to give HR the resources for them to create opportunities for professional development, for, going towards other certifications and all that. And with the slim group of people working there, it's much harder to do that. So we definitely have to increase their budget, and we need to figure out how we can move people who are somewhere else in the district that may be needed but not as needed to move into that office to support the work that they're trying to do. So I'm just encouraging the superintendent to look at that and to definitely present a budget to us that's going to be feasible for Ms. Mack and her team to do these things. And I know it's a lot of work, and I do think that what Dr. Yarborough mentioned of him going to represent his school so other people will be excited about coming, what a great idea will be to identify teachers of color who might go to their own colleges to recruit teachers. So some of those things might be great, but again, I agree with Mr. Golson. They don't have enough people in that office to do all that. So definitely, please present us with a budget that will support that work.
Thank you, Dr. Benitez, and you are right, and that would have to be presented in the general funds budget. That's now faced with a $9.9 million deficit. So that's the only place I could present it and increase that deficit to whatever number. And I know that you guys want me to present a budget that is balanced, and right now it's not the one we're projecting, because we are not even sure if we're going to get the 5 million that the mayor is putting in his budget for us. So, you're the board. Let me know if you want me to increase it to 10-point-something million proposed deficit. But I understand what you're saying. The department needs to be properly staffed. I understand that.
The other thing is, I think it was Miss Kanika Mann. I'm sorry, I don't have the Ingram Mann. She mentioned other staff like Danny Diaz and someone else. I would imagine that if you asked your staff, you could find a few more Danny Diaz's who can go, as Dr. Benita just mentioned, who can go and maybe recruit at their own schools and see what they can come up with. Just a thought. Dr. Yarborough?
Yes, two thoughts. One is, I'm in favor of seeing a true budget that reflects our HR aspirations. Mm-hmm. And I know that, I don't hold the final say on that budget or whether or not it's approved. But I think whoever makes the collective decisions about what the funding will ultimately be, let them have the weight and the accountability of, facing the tough decisions that you as a district face all the time and that we as a board also face in partnership. So I would say to present that and let us see what it will take financially in order to meet our aspirations. And the last thing is just in the spirit of collaboration and thinking back to what others have said, but also what Mr. Wilcox said in terms of, all of us being recruiters and a part of this team. When I joined the board, I remember Dr. Joyner through Dr. Tracy sent me a book about how to be a good, board member. And so
how not to be a terrible board member.
Yeah, how not to be a terrible board member. Yes. And what I'm thinking is we do want to tell the teachers we have, the educators we have now, staff, teachers, administrators, whoever's in our district, everyone who's in our district now, to retain them. We do want them to have a strong financial base. We do want to recruit based off of a strong salary financial base. But I think it would also be nice to say, and you have the best board members in partnership with you. And from the book, I have an idea of what that might be. But I'm curious what we might say. There you go. That's it, Mr. Golson. That's the book. What I'm curious is, what would we say in terms of, it would be great to say, like, we have the best parents. Our teachers have the best parents in partnership with them. So I'm curious what a description of our parent attributes and our caregiver attributes might be that our families can begin to work towards, because they are also a part of this picture in terms of retaining our talented staff and recruiting our talented staff. And as well for the city businesses, what would be ideal things that teachers and administrators and staff appreciate in a city that is partnered with the school district in order to make New Haven the ideal premier urban school district. So if we can start brainstorming a list of what that will be, then we can take this multi-pronged approach in recruiting, and we have strengths in multiple divisions, not just a strength in a financial sense. That's all, Madam President.
Thank you, Dr. Yarborough. Mr. Wilcox?
Just really briefly, as a reminder, there is a march scheduled for Wednesday that we were told about earlier during public comment. And then this is also, I believe the Board of Alders Education Committee meets this Thursday at 6:30 at Hill House cafeteria, I believe. So
It's
there
changed
are
to
some, excuse me?
It's changed to 6 p.m.
6 p.m. So there are also some things happening this week that directly affect having some of these general funds to be able to do some of these things. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Wilcox. Okay. Put away my agenda. Dr. Tracy, does that conclude your report?
Yes, that concludes my report, Madam President.
Thank you. And thank you, Ms. Mack and Ms. Ingram. President's report, really brief. We had our first half of the retreat on March 16. Second half should be coming soon. We've been having some issues with the times and dates for the presenters. So that should be coming soon, and I'll let you all know date choices when we have them. Mr. Bolton? You're muted. You're muted.
There we go. Sorry about that. Thank you, Madam President. I bring it up at the 2 meetings that I attended, and I'm going to continue to do so. I would hope that we have some sort of report update on COVID, masking issues, where we are, what we're doing to get to the point where masking could be moved to from mandatory to voluntary or whatever. And I'd like to know where we are in that process. It's kind of concerning to me that, let me say, first of all, I think our health director, Marissa Bond, is a great resource for this city, and it probably could be a great resource as the Secretary of State if she gets lucky enough to come out of that crowded field at the top. But at the same time, I'm struck by the duality of our political leaders, where at one hand, she's now having unmasked open meetings, whereas they're still making recommendations that our school system not go voluntary, and the dual reality, or duality reality, is that there seems to be one standard set for some people, another standard set for others. And I wouldn't be so concerned about it if I saw a plan in place as to what goals we needed to meet in order to get to that point. But I haven't seen that. And I've been asking for that. And I'm concerned about that. And I'm wondering how long this is going to go on. And people are calling me and wondering how long it's going to go on. As I said, I stay masked because my system is compromised at this point. That is something that I have to do, and I'm fine with that. But there are some people now who feel that we've gotten to a point. I mean, are we going to be the last school system in the country to unmask? And if we are, what gets us there? Again, what gets us there? So I like to see if at least that which was promised several meetings ago, a weekly, two-week report. I'm sorry. Hello?
Mr. Lamb, you're not on mute.
I'm muted?
No, another person was not on mute.
Oh, I like to see us keep the promise that we made. And that was that every 2 weeks at every board meeting, we were going to update folks as to where we were in this process. and I don't see it on the agenda, and I don't see an update. I don't see a written update or anything else. And I'm wondering if we're ever going to do that, Madam President. Thank you.
Mr. Golden, it'll actually be on the agenda at our next meeting. We talked about it briefly right before this meeting. So it's definitely coming for our next board meeting.
Thank you, Madam President.
Thank you. Unless we just everyone to schedule a special meeting to discuss that, but. Mayor Eliger?
Yeah, and thank you. Appreciate Mr. Golson's comments. I don't want to get into a lengthy discussion on masks because goodness knows that's a rabbit hole. But I agree that we can have Director Bond come in next time. I do think it's very important to highlight that there was an allusion to a conflict in the health director going to unmask events versus us having a mask mandate in our schools, as if that is not consistent with our assessment of the health needs right now. I have the highest respect for the health director and have spoken with her many times about the integrity of the work that we do. And our children wearing masks in schools is quite different than a room full of vaccinated or mostly vaccinated adults that are likely not as vulnerable. We have a very high percentage of young people in our schools that are a very high percentage that are unvaccinated and a very high percentage that are at higher risk of complications and comorbidities with COVID. So I just want to underscore that the health director and our team has worked very hard to be consistent and follow what the health guidance is, and we will continue to do so. But I also think it's a good point that Mr. Golson made that we'll have the health director in next time, and we're monitoring things closely. We all want to lift the mask mandate when we can.
Thank you, Mayor Eliger. Mr. Golson?
Thank you. Thank you. I just want to make it clear that I have a extremely high level of respect for Director Bond. I certainly was not trying to attack Director Bond, but there's something called perception, and the perception is that there's one set of rules for one set of people, another set of rules for another set of people. I don't know if the people in her room are vaccinated, if they've given vaccination cards when they entered. I don't know any of that information. All I know is that she's opened up her meetings to being open meetings, and still suggesting to this board that our school system should still be masked. And it would be good for her to come here or somewhere and give the reasons why. And since we don't have the reasons why, perception takes over from reality. So let's get her or someone from her department or someone from the city or from the school system to tell us why we are where we are at this point. And because I keep getting the questions and I don't know the answers. I don't know. People call me and ask me, why are we still masked? I don't know. So I like to be able to answer that question. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Golson. Dr. Tracy?
So I had a quick conversation with Director Bond today. We were talking about the same thing, and we're going to meet and have more conversation. One of the things that was brought up is that New Haven Public Schools, of all the school systems in Connecticut, we have the lowest vaccination rate, and in particular among our young people, and we have the highest rate of disease and comorbidities than any other place in the state of Connecticut. That was telling to me. So we're watching, and we've even seen an uptick in COVID. We had 19 last week, which, whoa, we thought we were going down. We had 19 last week. So the virus is still raging, and I'm not one here suggesting that, because I'd like to get out of masks too.
But I think we have to make sure the data supports what it is we're doing. So Director Bond will be very much at the next meeting to give more important information to us.
Thank you, Dr. Tracy. Head Start report, Mr. Wilcox.
I'll be very brief. We did have our meeting, but what we did as part of it was we had an outside person come in and do training for the new board members, and a refresher for myself on role of the governing body, which is us, and the policy council, which is the parent group, and so on. So, but also the other materials like financial report and things like that are posted on the website.
Thank you, Mr. Wilcox. Citywide School Building Committee report.
I have no report because we haven't met since our last meeting, but our next meeting for this committee is on April 14th.
And Finance and Operations.
I'll also be very brief. We met. The minutes of the meeting are in your packets and are posted on the district website.
Thank you. Governance report, Dr. Benitez.
We are meeting, we didn't have the meeting this last Monday. We are meeting the following Monday. We did not have a specific item in the agenda other than following up on things that are ongoing and not completed. But we hope to take advice from the retreat and some of the conversations that we've had around policies that we need to consider or reconsider. So we shall be meeting the following week.
Thank you. Food Service Task Group, Dr. Yarborough.
Thank you. The Food Service Task Force will meet this coming month. And at our last meeting, the food service staff have a quality assurance checklist, and these checklists are in place. And just a note that students can request a fresh meal if a problem arises with their meal. There are also taste tests that are held in collaboration with students to get their opinion on new products and recipes. So we encourage and invite students to participate in those. And then another note that I didn't mention at our last board meeting in detail is that work is being done for the summer meals program, but specifically there will be four vans distributing meals at 16 sites in addition to the yearly summer program. So we look forward to continuing to work towards those objectives in addition to the ongoing work that our food service task force does. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Yarborough. And if there's no further discussion, I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
Second. Okay. Mayor Elicker,
Yes.
Mr. Wilcox,
Yes.
Dr. Joyner. Oh, Dr. Joyner's gone. Dr.
Yes.
Yarborough,
Yes.
Dr. Benitez,
Yes.
and the students are both gone. Mr. Goldson,
Yes.
and I am a yes as well. Good night, everyone.